across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Yes, welcome to the home of common sense. Thank you to Julia. She's back tomorrow. What have we got this afternoon? Pretty chocker at this end. White working class students excluded from almost every Oxbridge diversity scholarship, with schemes prioritising ethnicity over socio-economic backgrounds, despite working class kids being among the most disadvantaged in the entire English school system. What do we make of that? Details to come in a couple of moments. Also this afternoon, the Rochdale grooming gang leader Shabir Ahmed is set to walk free on Thursday despite having his British citizenship revoked. He's protected from deportation by a legal loophole that Shabana Mahmood is now under pressure to close. Quite how you commit that amount of horrendous, horrific, prolific child sex offender and are able to ever walk out of jail is a mystery. And Labour has seen virtually no polling bounce since Starmer quit, as Burnham is forced to deny that he would be the party's first female Prime Minister in all but sex, after a senior Labour figure claimed he was genuinely passionate about traditionally female-orientated issues. What a nice man. They still playing that game. These people are flipping bananas. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000 is where you will find us. So welcome to modern Britain. Welcome to Burnham's Britain, where the latest diversity masterclass appears to be this. If you're a white working class kid from a forgotten town with parents who never went to university, congratulations, you've officially discovered the one form of disadvantage that doesn't seem to qualify for quite so many diversity schemes. This government was meant to be all about opportunities for all.
The data is really clear that white working class kids get amongst the worst outcomes in the education system. That's not to say there aren't other disparities, and we absolutely will tackle those too. I mean, one of the biggest indicators is obviously class background and the amount of money that your family has.
Class background, always relegated to the bottom of the pile. I've never understood it. It's really easy to work out. It's not difficult to identify. Databases will throw up the facts and figures for you. And yet, and I feel so passionately about this, that working class kids, particularly working class kids from disadvantaged backgrounds, are so often and throughout life are ignored. In the name of diversity, you'll often find somebody who's not white, whose background is far more advantageous. You'll find this quite a lot in certain backgrounds, more so than the white kid. But the white kid, for some reason, because he's white, is relegated, despite the fact the person he's up against comes from a opulent middle-class background with several homes, cars, and professional parents who work as senior surgeons somewhere. It's curious. And we learned today the Telegraph newspaper has found that across Oxford and Cambridge there are numerous scholarships, bursaries and outreach programmes aimed specifically at black and minority ethnic students, while white working class applicants are eligible for only a tiny handful of these. How is that even allowed to happen? Does that not break a law somewhere? I'm not into laws and legislation over this kind of stuff, but I know everybody else seems to be, and certainly this government obsess about spreadsheets and databases. How have they not worked this out? All of this, of course, just as an independent inquiry concludes that white working class kids are among the most educationally disadvantaged groups in the country. Now, how do you square those two things? It is ridiculous. So we have this curious situation where apparently, when it comes to helping the disadvantaged, some disadvantage is simply more fashionable than others. This was the Vice-Chancellor at Oxford University.
Academic Futures fits into a long history of the University of Oxford welcoming peoples from underrepresented backgrounds. We know well that the transition from undergraduate to graduate is a difficult one. It's my ambition that we continue to support that transition, to make sure that any student who wants to pursue graduate research is not limited from doing so due to a lack of funding.
Yeah, unless they're white. And then there's this, because this kind of ties in with the sort of nonsensical nature of of diversity. I thought we'd done with this kind of old shizzle, but no, because Mr Burnham's in town. Labour MPs insisting that Andy Burnham's cabinet should be split 50-50 between men and women. Not because the best team naturally works out that way, but because the spreadsheet says it should. There it is. Imagine applying that same logic to airline pilots or surgeons. Think about it. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to reassure you that everyone here has met the diversity quota. Your pilot today is Beryl. She's 98, looks like she needs ironing, has one eye and a rainbow-coloured perm. But, man, she knows how to tick a box. Enjoy your flight, if we get there. It'd be ludicrous. That's stupid. You just get the best person for the job, right? Somewhere along the line, we've confused diversity with arithmetic. Representation matters, of course, but so does a little thing called competence and ability. Most voters couldn't care less what race, background, sex, or anything else someone comes from. They care whether they can run the economy, fix the NHS, control immigration and keep the country safe. The truly revolutionary idea in 2026 is apparently judging people as individuals rather than demographic categories. Merit has become the awkward relative nobody that nobody wants to invite to the party. Now, I don't sense Andy Burnham's heart is in any of this stuff to change it in any kind of way. So buckle in. It's about to get a whole lot worse. 0344 499 1000. Are white working class kids being left behind? Just answer me that. I've got my own experience of that as a kid, and there was absolutely, without doubt, Chloe Dobbs is with us, who is white-ish. Is that white or is that orange?
I'm white, but I have a Cuban grandma, which means I tan well when the sun comes out.
Yeah, and you love the sun, don't you?
Yeah, and you know what? I've decided to play the diversity game on the London Marathon ballot for last year because I keep on getting rejected.
For the what?
The London Marathon ballot.
Oh, marathon. I thought you said mayoral ballot.
No.
So
I have claimed that I am mixed race on the ballot this year, saying, you know, white and Hispanic. With the hope, I'm definitely going to get a place next year because of that now.
A picture of you with a large cigar.
They ask you loads of questions about...
Really?
Yeah, they ask for your sexuality on it.
What, to run a marathon? What are they, sickos? What sort of pervos are running this?
I have a friend who's partly deaf, and he gets in, like, every single year. And so when he told me that, I thought, I've just got to tick a box and I'll get a place. So we'll see. Maybe next year
I've learned something
I'll be running.
So there's a diversity quota in the London Marathon.
Yeah, if you can't beat the game, play the game.
I mean, I'd stand no chance, even with this body. You'd think I'd be a shoo-in, wouldn't you?
You can walk it. There are loads of walkers at the back. You'd make it. I'd cheer you on if you get a place.
I'd make it. I'm worried I'd win it. Not just about make it.
Yeah, you'll beat all the Kenyans, won't you?
Absolutely, yeah, by miles. I mean, this is a curious territory. What saddens me, Chloe, about this is that I thought this whole thing was a conversation from 10 years ago, and we're kind of done with that now. We don't. Oh, we need diversity. We need 50. I mean, anyone who says to the Prime Minister, your cabinet should be 50-50, is an idiot, right? I mean, your cabinet should be full of the best people. I don't care whether they're men, women, something in between. I do not care, as long as they're the best people.
Absolutely. I mean, this has been a way to hit back at the claims that there is a boys' club in number 10. To be honest, in the cabinet, we've had quite a lot of women. Of course, we've had Shabana Mahmood, Yvette Cooper, Angela Rayner before she went. We've got Bridget Phillipson, Lisa Nant, like, plenty of women around. But the accusation of it being a boys' club, I think, came from Mandelson being put in by the boys when he wasn't properly vetted. He wasn't really an appropriate man for the job. And then we heard from Ollie Robbins speaking about his, his version of events that Lord Doyle, the now disgraced Lord Doyle, had potentially been. They were trying to find a cushy job for him as he's one of the boys. So I think it's more those sort of advisory roles in the
That's cobblers, isn't it? They wanted Mandelson because they felt that Mandelson had a certain swing in the States, and he's got a background and he's got sort of Svengali-like properties that will do well. They didn't go... I mean, he wasn't employed because of his masculine qualities, was he? I mean, this wasn't a fella that they thought, he's one of the lads. Get him a job. Get Pete in. Big Pete. He wasn't that, was it? It was just because it was Peter Mandelson.
Yes and no. I would say that there's definitely... it's definitely the case that the friends that people choose typically tend to be people of the same club. So if you're looking to
work your way up, find your way in.
If you're looking to give someone a job and you're going to pick one of your mates rather than someone, you know, actually putting a job offer out there, making people apply properly, it's probably going to be someone who is the same sex as you. So there is an element of that. But to suggest that you should have a 50-50 quota is absolutely ridiculous. Just say we're going to have a more transparent process when we, you know, want people for advisory roles. We're not just going to pick our mates. We're going to allow the best and the creme de la creme to apply and have the proper process to make sure that the best is chosen. And you know, speaking of having the best people in the roles running the country, we've also found out after The Spectator did an FOI request that in the Treasury they have scrapped the numerical reasoning test to check that you can do maths before running the country's finances. They've scrapped that because they say it was having an adverse effect on the diversity of successful applicants. So they've basically said people who are a different skin colour, presumably, or different gender, or all these different tick boxes, weren't doing as well on the numerical reasoning test. So not as many of them were getting into the Treasury. So you know what? Let's just scrap the test and say you don't need to be able to do maths to run the country's finances.
Who says this? Who are the? There's a person somewhere. There's an individual. Literally, I know they'll go, well, we had a big meeting about it because we got a nice meeting and they got together. But there is an individual somewhere that signed that off and went, yeah, this is a good thing to do. Who are these? And of course, what happens? It's contagious, this kind of thinking, because then corporations get hold of it. And I remember I was hosting a conference. I won't say for what organisation, but this kind of area sort of came up, and the question was, or the assumption was, the rule was that it was about visible diversity. So it was no good talking about class, because visible diversity trumped any other form. So it would have so visible diversity would include something as simple as being female, but it would include skin colour. It might include religion, depending on what you choose to wear, but it would never include class, because you can't see that. So this front-facing organisation was obsessed with, as long as you can see lots of people from different backgrounds. And I've said this a ton of times. When the BBC first started, it's there in Shepherd's Bush. Now, Shepherd's Bush always sounds to outsiders like a lovely sort of leafy area, and it is quite nice in places, but it's got a huge council estate right wrapped around where the BBC, the old BBC building in White City was. And there was a theory when they built this that this would be great for the kids on the estates that could get jobs at the BBC. Yeah, right. That never, ever happened. And then years later, when Greg, name escapes me, ran ITV for a while, Anyway, he ran the BBC. Greg Dyke. When he ran the BBC, he said it was hideously white and they wanted to get lots of non-white people in. But all they did, Chloe, was get non-white people who were, in terms of background, the equivalent of the white people. Kids who never thought that the job was beyond them anyway. It wasn't the kids from the estate. And, you know, you'd go down there. I remember having a conversation with a fellow who was a researcher or a producer on a politics show at the BBC, and he was going, yeah, basically, I am working class. Oh, right, OK, what do your parents do? My dad's a doctor, mum's a dentist. Right, OK, I think I can... And by the way, there's nothing wrong with him being middle class, but don't pretend you're working class. And so the same thing happened. It's just crammed full of middle-class, quite privileged kids.
Yeah, I mean, we've been... Of
loads of different colours at the BBC. They haven't got a colour problem at the BBC.
We were taught for years to, live in a colour-blind way. I don't see people's skin colour, just judge people on their character and their merits, and now we seem to have gone the other way. You spoke at the beginning about the Oxbridge scholarships. I very much bared the brunt of this, in that I was a kid who was going to university with, yes, the full student finance maintenance loan, but it's not really enough. And if you haven't got parents who are able to support you and give you extra cash on the side, then you're going to have to get a bunch of jobs. But at Oxbridge, you are banned from having jobs during term time. So I was desperately trying to apply.
Is that right? You can't work at Wetherspoons?
You're not allowed to work at Spoons. No, sadly not. So I was desperately trying. If you're going to have that policy, you need to make sure that people have the funding to survive financially, to feed themselves and pay their living costs, especially when the rents are quite high in some of these colleges. And so I was looking through the whole booklet, through all of these scholarships. If you were not BAME or you weren't in STEM, absolutely no chance. If you were a white Brit doing a humanities degree, you will not get a penny. And you know what? I had to break the rules and work secretly so that I could make enough money to... So I broke the rules, but, you know, if they come after me for it, then I'll say, well, you should have given me the cash. But that was infuriating for me, knowing that there were other kids who were, you know, ticked the box, who were BAME, who were getting all of this funding, all this free money, who were able to completely focus on their studies, whilst I was having to secretly work to pay my living costs.
And it happens in so many areas. I mean, no one has a sympathy for an actor because you just think, you know, they're just bloody poncy actors, who cares? But it was that, who's that really annoying guy that played Sherlock? Benedict Cumberbatch, him. He did make a good point once. He said, if you're a working class kid from, you know, outside of London and you're talented enough to go to RADA, forget it, because you won't be able to pay to live in London. You've got no chance. So if you're middle class, somebody will pay for it for you. I thought that's a really good point, because all the big drama schools, they spread out a little bit, are down in the capital. So you'd a similar thing as your experience. You'd have no chance.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to have some funding set aside for some form of positive discrimination, if that's something you agree with, at least go with what the data says is the most, you know, underprivileged group that's struggling the most. And in that case, the data shows, as we've seen from this report, that it is white working class kids who suffer the most. And I saw it growing up. My school was full of kids from the council estate. Guess what? They were all white, and they were very much underprivileged. They did not have any privilege because of their skin colour at all. Their skin colour meant nothing.
You very rarely see it in any walk of life, whether it's, I mean, once in a while in politics, mainly on the left, but generally speaking, people who end up in senior positions, civil service, broadcasting, media, medicine, surgeons and the like, go find the working class surgeon and it'll be a long old look. I mean, you will eventually find the odd one, but it's tragic. Are white working class kids being left behind? Do you agree on that point, or do you agree with Cuban Chloe that maybe there is an issue around this? 0344 499 1000, and your own anecdotal kind of experience on that one as well. So there's that element, and the MP thing, which we might come back to after a break because there's so much to say on this. But the idea that MPs are going, yeah, Andy, you've got to have 50-50 in your cabinet. It's like, don't be a donut. Get the best people in there. It's about running the country, not ticking a box. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Only somebody like Rachel Reeves would take a tax-free savings product and apply a tax on it. So the parting gift of Rachel Reeves is that she's going to come for your ISA now and apply a 22% tax. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. Well, we're going to fight this every step of the way. I'm going to hopefully raise it in Parliament later today and try and put as much pressure on her.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This one in from Brown in Cambridge says, afternoon, Ian, don't forget the Starmer's cabinet did have more women than it does now, but a few got the boot for misbehaving. What does that tell us? Never trust a woman in the cabinet. Is that what Brad is saying?
Possibly.
I just can't
I'm not
understand.
going to insinuate anything.
What is Andy Burnham? OK, it's not Andy Burnham.
I think
people around him.
I think one thing that the Labour leadership contest or lack thereof says about women is the fact that women are less assertive and less competitive. The fact that Angela Rayner isn't throwing her hat in the ring, or any other women, well, at least as of yet, to be Labour leader, and they're just letting Andy Burnham take it. That's very much a female trait, and that is one reason why women don't have as many why you don't have as many women CEOs, why you don't have as many women in top roles, is because they are less competitive and less assertive. And that comes down to hormone balances. Men have more testosterone. It's not necessarily because the men have said, oh, we're not giving roles to women because we're misogynist and we don't like them. It's just less women ask for those roles and push for those roles. Women don't ask for pay rises as much.
So that's just a basic fact. But are they not asking for the pay rise because they are somehow genetically predisposed to that gentler position? Or are they still riding on the back of the historic nature of asking for a pay rise if you're a woman?
No, I don't think I would say, I can't
imagine you being backwards and coming forwards when it came to...
I think that I'm always very hesitant to...
But isn't the average... But I think this comes down to class
I'm very squeamish about bartering, for example, if I'm going to buy something and asking for pay rises. But men are much more assertive and more confident, and that comes down to the fact they've got higher testosterone. Of course, there may be a small element of women going, oh, maybe because he's a man, he's not going to want to give me a pay rise, right? But the huge difference between men and women is their hormones. If you have way more testosterone, you're going to be more competitive, you're going to be more assertive. That's just basic biology.
There is also, I mean, it always sounds terribly unfashionable to bring up the whole thing about having a baby, but that is a genuine factor in the equation. If you're off, I mean, we had a friend who was off work for 1 month and went back to work. A couple of other mates, 3 or 4 years before they went back to work. And both of those scenarios are fine if it suits the person. But I think you've got many more people in the latter category there who don't go back after a month. And that's bound to kind of put you in a bit of a pincer movement in terms of the ladder, as it were.
Yeah, I do think it's something that comes into it. And I've had so many debates with people on this, and there's no perfect answer, because on the one hand, you don't want to discourage women from having children, and you can't make women, you can't make men get pregnant and make them do half of the labouring, and it also doesn't work to say that men, I know some countries do equal paternity leave, but the reality is that a woman and her brain and her body are so much more attuned to be the primary caregiver of a child. So
that's 100%. That's just a fact.
Children end up way more traumatised, for example, if the mother has psychological problems, like alcoholism, than if the father has, for example, because the baby is so attached to the mother, and if there's an issue with the attachment with the mother, that's so much more damaging than, a father being absent, for example. So there's no way that you can make the genders equal like this. And also, if you speak to any neuroscientists that have studied the brains of men and women, they will say it looks like they are two different species when you look at the way that men and women's brains function. So the idea that if we got rid of misogyny, that in all walks of life men and women would behave exactly the same and have the same jobs. It's just not true. They are different creatures, basically.
And also that thing about I saw that Thomas Skinner fella, you know, the fella that won The Apprentice some years ago. He's a bit mouthy, a bit bosh. I quite like him, actually. I saw him round here a little while back.
I love the interview of him just waving the English flag whilst being told it's racist.
But he's just, I think his wife's just had another kid, and there's a picture of him in the hospital, and this drives me nuts. He's got his top off, holding the baby, so the baby can have some skin-to-skin love from Dad. Get in the bin! No, what is all that old balderdash?
No, that is that, no. So
it's not a thing!
No, so if you speak to any midwife, they'll say as soon as your baby is born, the first thing you should do is get it on your chest as soon as possible.
Yeah, as a woman. The bloke doesn't need to do it.
Well, but don't you want to bond to your baby as well?
I don't want to breastfeed it.
No.
I can bond to my baby with my T-shirt on.
It's not about milk. It's about oxytocin. So when the baby sits on the chest of a mother, particularly of the mother, but also the father, the baby will receive and the mother will receive a huge rush of oxytocin, so you become really bond to each other.
I don't believe any of that, by the way. I don't believe that at all.
You need to study neuroscience.
I am a
politics.
neuroscientist.
I'm multifaceted.
I'm telling you now. I can understand. Of course, there's a thing with the woman. The baby is aware of the milk. They're right near the breast. They clearly. You don't even have to show a baby. It's extraordinary to see that as well. You don't even have to show a baby where to feed. They just go there. It's fan. Obviously, you have to give them a hand on day one, but you take the point. Whereas a bloke, I mean, the idea that it sniffs your old chest, I don't think that's really doing anything bonding-wise.
Babies bond to their fathers, not
Not
as much
because
as
you
their
stuck them on
mothers.
your nipple.
It's not. No, it's not about being on the nipple. It's just about being somewhere on the skin.
But so without that,
You
have
probably
a
stick it to your
lesser
leg.
bond. I have a lesser bond with my child because I kept my T-shirt.
Yes.
What
yes.
a lot of old cobblers.
That crucial period right after the baby is born it's very important.
Can we just play this? I was the first to hold my, because my babies came out of the sunroof, so they didn't the caesarean way. So
okay. I just imagined a baby coming out of the car roof.
So I was the first to hold both of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's messed up the kids then. Did they go on the mother's chest as well?
No, I just walked out with them. Bye. Back soon. No, of course they did.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Eventually.
They might be okay then.
The first one was...
They might turn out all right.
Yeah. And the first one looked a little bit like Sandy Toksvig. I still can't get that image out of my head. But that's a whole other story. Can we just go back to Andy Burnham? Because I want to talk about this idea that he's going to be the first... Yes. The Labour's first female Prime Minister in all but name, insisting he never made the claim and never would. On the bright side, he does have a mission statement ready to go. Have a listen to this.
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
He can get in the bin as well. I mean, good hope and in your heart and every postcode, that's our mission. Is that your only mission, Andy? What about growing the economy, mate? What about getting people into some meaningful jobs? What about stop robbing people blind who are trying to start a small business, which your predecessor, as he will be, has done?
Yeah, look, some people may be naive into thinking he's going to fix all of these problems, but what's happening, or at least the polling is suggesting, is that the more people hear of Andy Burnham, the less they like him. So initially, you just see, one or two clips of him, and you think, gosh, he seems so much more human than Starmer. We're just sort of begging for someone who's not like a robot. And so you think, yeah, I'm going to vote for that guy. Sounds great. And then you start hearing him open his mouth, and you realise, not sure this is going to be better than the last lot. I'm not sure he's going to find the magic money tree for all these magical things he's going to fix.
Who's the comedian? I've forgotten the name of the comedian, reasonably well known, who's doing a whole series of sketches on, hi, I'm Andy Burnham, I do normal things. Look, I've got normal toast, I have a normal cup of tea in the morning.
I love
bread, and he just does this sort of parody of Burnham's normalness.
Yeah, I also love the Crewkern Gazette AI videos of him, and they've got some where he's got enormous eyelashes.
Yes, they have. Yeah.
Playing into the fact that he's going to be our first female Prime Minister.
Eyelashes and black T-shirt, which apparently was a blue T-shirt, as he later clarified.
I saw that.
Yeah. Chloe, we're out of time, but it's been brilliant to see you, Cuban Chloe, with us on the programme. We will see you in about a week's time. Comments on these subjects, 0344 499 1000. Are white working class kids being left behind? The story on diversity quotas in the Cabinet as well. Thoughts on all of this? Lines are open. 1:30. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 0344 499 1000. White working class kids among the most disadvantaged in English schools, yet analysis finds they are shut out of almost every diversity scholarship at Oxford and Cambridge, with schemes prioritising ethnicity over a lower class background. Let's first speak with Lord Tony Sewell, Conservative peer, chair of the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities and founder and director of the charity Generating Genius. Good to see you, Tony. Thank you for coming on with us. I mean, this is an extraordinary position. Not the first time we've found these sort of contradictory factors working in our society. What's happening?
What's happening is that people are just not looking at the real factors that may determine whether you get up and down in the world, and that is your income background. I mean, that's got to be a priority. Instead, race and ethnicity seem to be the priority here. I think Oxford and Cambridge have been locked into a kind of thought process that says that really white children are not really a race. They're just some being outside of what we think about. And that's where we are now. And so they're in trouble here with this. And I think they're going to row back.
I think row, no pun intended on the road reference, but the interesting thing is, I suppose, and I'm only guessing here, Tony, that Oxford and Cambridge have spent years trying to ward off the image that they're elitist and that they only people like Oscar Wilde and Stephen Fry, often the same person, are allowed to attend there. And for a long time, they tried to say, no, we're not like that at all, we're not elitist, and this was their attempt. But in doing so, they appear to have got it horribly wrong.
They have, and I think what's gone wrong here is very similar to what's happening in America with places like Harvard and Yale, where really the problem is that white working class children in particular are not doing as well, perhaps, as ethnic minorities. And that's a fact. We've got that out there now in terms of inquiries. And so the problem really, if we're going to just find out how do we solve this, we have to go back to schools. We have to go back to where it really starts. So if you've got an institution that's demanding elitist results, 3A stars and whatever it is, for a fact that if you go to certain areas, particularly if you just concentrate in London, you will get that group. And then what you do then is you pretend that you're doing diversity by saying that it's about race. But really you're not, because you're not looking at the whole country and really looking at the problems that country faces. Yeah,
indeed. I mean, I've long thought, Tony, that often, we can talk a lot about race issues and they're very real, and I would never, as a white bloke, I'd never pretend to be able to walk in the shoes of a non-white person and all the experiences, the negative experiences that can come with. But I do come from a working class background, and I know an awful lot about that. And I know that, coming from a council estate, and when I first got into this industry years ago now, it was frankly horrific in many respects. It was like, talk about walking through treacle. I was with people who spoke in a way that I didn't recognise, I'd never seen. They did things that I didn't really understand, and I don't mean weird things, they might have done that as well. I just mean their recreational activities. A fellow once told me that he said, my parents, this guy was about 45, and he told me this story that his parents were skiing this weekend. I thought it was a joke. I thought, how can pensioners go skiing? That's ridiculous. I thought he was about to tell me some gag about, my mum's gone on a wheelchair and my dad's in a neck brace or something. And it wasn't. It was true, because middle class and middle upper class people do go skiing when they're 80 years old. But it was all of that stuff. It freaked me out.
But Ian, what you've got to understand is, when I was in school in the 70s, and what happened to predominantly white working class children was that we didn't really think about university for them. What happened was, in a classroom, in my school, 2/3 of the school was white, 1/3 was black. And what actually happened in the end was that the white children in the end managed to get jobs. So they left school at 16. They either got a job with their family. In fact, even the Daily Mirror, they would get links in there and just go there. And to a certain extent, the black kids were kind of unemployed or on the street. And so what happened when Blair then decided to make it 50% of our children to go to university, that's when the shift started. And what we've got now is something completely different. We've got the world now where London and London children, which is predominantly ethnic minorities, are able to get those grades. So it's actually quite perverse to sort of say now that we should be tracking ethnic minorities. Really, what we should be doing is looking at the country as a whole and really saying that, look, if we're going to help, if we want all children to get to, or an opportunity to get to universities, then we should be not looking at race, but we should be looking at class.
I've always thought, again, as I said a second ago, notwithstanding and not forgetting for 1 second the story of racism, and that's a whole separate thing, but the story of classism, which is very often missed, but I think is often... The racism issue is often mistaken when it's actually classism that we're kind of talking about here. And if you look at the boardrooms, you know, the historic boardrooms that usually has some old duffer that's come from a nice background and his granddad also worked at the company and they went to Oxbridge and that kind of thing, and they've got a nice house and they go to holidays in the south of France and all the rest of it. That's a class thing, isn't it? When either women or a white kid, a black kid says, you know, that opportunity it's taken by men, it's taken by white men. No, it's taken by people from certain backgrounds, because an ordinary white man has got no chance of that position, no more than an ordinary black man has, because it's about class.
Yeah, it is, and I think that what you've hit it on the head. And I think what the issue now should be is what's the best routes for all of our children. We've also got to look at this flip that's going on, that London is a different space than the rest of the country. And we've got to be able to sort of say, well, look, OK, if you're going to have programs that are going to help children get to your elite institutions, you can't base it on race anymore. You've got to base it on their income levels. Yeah. And that's a fairer outcome.
Final point. I mean, you come from an ordinary background, Tony. You were a child of the 70s. You know how uncomfortable that could be for a black kid. But there you are in the House of Lords. Nice journey, right?
It is. And let me just tell you one factor about the change that I've seen. There's a school called Brampton Manor in the northeast of London. That sends more children to Oxford than Eton does. That's a normal state school. However, if you look at the demographic of that school, I would say it's 80% ethnic minorities. Now, that tells you where the shift is going here. We've got to be concerned. We've got to focus our energies on the majority population. That is just a fact. And we've got to sort of tell our elite institutions to get their act together. And they're meant to be clever. I don't know what this is. This is stupid, really, as far as I'm concerned, and also driven, I think, by ideology than anything else.
Yeah, I think so. And people who think it makes them nicer people to import these kind of initiatives. Right. Listen, Tony, lovely to have you on. Let's speak again. Lord Tony Sewell, Conservative peer, chair of the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities, founder and director of the charity Generating Genius, a common sense speaker. Thank you to him. There'll be people that disagree with what he said, but your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. Joanna Williams is with us, author of How Woke Won, writer at The Spectator. It's fair to say, Joanna, if you were a bloke sitting there, well, you wouldn't be a bloke because you're only there because you're a woman, right? I mean, that's what they did. They decided, here's Joanna, we're not sure about her writing, but she's a chick, so she'll be fine.
I trust you would never patronise me to that extent, Ian. I come on your programme because I trust that you are interested in what I have to say.
Well, exactly, and that's the point, isn't it? As if we would sit here and go, I tell you what, we need a woman to talk about this. I mean, it's just bonkers.
That's right. Unfortunately, there are many people in the Labour Party who don't seem to agree with you. Yep. And there's Labour women are pushing Andy Burnham, Prime Minister-elect, well, not elected, Prime Minister appointed, about to be appointed, to make all kinds of pledges that there need to be half of all government jobs going to women, that there always needs to be a woman in the room at all times. And indeed, the rumour has gone round that Starmer himself might be Labour's first female Prime Minister because he's more interested
Burnham, you mean?
Burnham, sorry, that Burnham might be Labour's first female Prime Minister because he's more interested in health and education than bombs and budgets.
What's fascinating about this is that I mean, firstly, this idea that, it's got to be 50-50. I mean, that's a conversation from sort of 10, 15, 20 years ago, isn't it? People used to talk like... I thought we'd done with that kind of nonsense. You would have thought even the kind of people that would propagate such an insane, a demonstrably stupid idea, on a quiet moment, they'd go, that doesn't really work, this, does it? Because surely it has to be about merit and ability. But somehow you get this collective together and they sing from this really wonky hymn sheet and sound as if they believe it. I mean, I can't imagine what kind of fellow human being would think it was a sensible, sane thing to say everything will be better as long as it's 50-50, completely mixed 50-50, men on one side, women on the other, then everything's good. I mean, it's just gross stupidity.
I mean, it's not just that rhetorically this is a blast from the past, and arguing for these kind of quotas throws us back to a different era.
Yeah.
More to the point, it actually flies in the face of reality, because if you look at all the major officers of state, we've got Rachel Reeves as female Chancellor of the Exchequer, we've got Shabana Mahmood in charge at the Home Office, we've got Yvette Cooper in charge of the Foreign Office. So, I mean, I know I'm a woman, but according to my maths, that's 3 out of 4 of the top officers of state are actually occupied by women. So that's not 50-50, that's 75%. So I don't think Labour's woman problem is at all to do with maths. You know, almost half of all Labour MPs now are women. So if there's a woman problem in the Labour Party, and I do think that there is, it's got nothing to do with numbers, and it's got nothing to do with people being in those top positions. It's because we have these patronising and insulting ideas that we need quotas. Burnham's now saying that his top team of female MPs need to be protected from criticism, whereas I actually think there's some very, very good reason to criticise the likes of Rachel Reeves. Look what she's done with employers' national insurance contributions, with inheritance tax on farmers, Shabana Mahmood's one in, one out migration policy, Bridget Phillipson's VAT on school fees. I think there's very good reason to criticise these policies, and if Burnham's going to come in and introduce some quota system, protect his women MPs from criticism, you know, it's that kind of patronising nonsense that does women no favours whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just a bit bizarre. And I remember you mentioned Rachel Reeves, and when she first became Chancellor, she did do quite a lot of that. I'm the first female Chancellor. And I sort of had these images of, the late Margaret Thatcher, certainly Theresa May, Liz Truss going, yeah, thanks, sister, for the push, right? Because, this at that stage seemed like a very anachronistic thing to say from Rachel Reeves, but she said it nonetheless. And as you rightly say, I don't look at the cabinet and think there's a shortage of women. I know I'm a bloke, and I don't think I'm looking at it through some kind of biased lens. I just don't, because there's plenty of women there. Foreign Secretary is a woman, Home Secretary, Chancellor is a woman. The 3 of the 4 biggest positions of state are taken by women. So, in fact, they're overrepresented.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is you've got people like Burnham who, up until 2 minutes ago, couldn't actually define what a woman was, who's now trying to present himself as a feminist. I think that's the real problem that we're facing here. You've got women MPs themselves like Stella Creasy, Nadia Whittome, who are campaigning to overturn the Supreme Court ruling that a woman should be defined on the basis of biological sex and women should be entitled to have single-sex spaces. I think if Labour's got a woman problem, it lies with Labour's women MPs.
Indeed. In terms of Andy Burnham, I mean, I don't know. This is the wider question, I suppose, of what kind of Prime Minister he's likely to become over the months and years maybe ahead. Perish the thought. But he's doing this feminist thing. He's doing this very lefty thing. Do you think someone's just done the maths and gone, Andy, whatever noise people like Nigel Farage make, whatever noise Kemi Badenoch makes, she's had a few good innings at the dispatch box of late, there are more people likely to vote for someone who's on the left than on the right. So keep it that way. Keep on track with that, and that's your safest bet. Is it as crude and sad as that, do you think?
there might well be something in that. But I think it's also the case that Labour has lost support amongst women. I mean, I personally know lots of women who wouldn't vote for Labour precisely because they've betrayed women over this issue of women's rights and women's single-sex spaces. I think that's been a huge turn-off for a lot of very sensible women like myself. You know, I'm very lucky. I live in Canterbury and my local MP is Rosie Duffield.
Yep.
But Rosie Duffield doesn't have the Labour whip. I think if Andy Burnham wants to prove that he is a good representative for women and wants to win back disenchanted female voters, he could make a very good start by coming out and making a very strong declaration that he himself knows exactly what a woman is and reinstalling the Labour whip to Rosie Duffield.
Well, indeed, but of course, Labour's idea of diversity is never diversity of thought, is it? It's diversity in certain parochial areas of life. Interesting. Joanna, thank you, as ever. Great to have you on. Joanna Williams, journalist, author of How Woke One, writer at The Spectator. Thank you to her. There's so much in this, so your comments on all of the above. And that question, are white working-class kids being left behind? David in the Cotswolds says, I was applying to the City of London as a young lad from the north in 1989 as a trainee options trader in the outcry pits, passed all initial interviews and failed the final one in a final interview with one of the very, very large banks. The very nice 40-year-old head of futures desk from Essex told me I wouldn't get it now as I came from the north and went to the wrong university. He told me I would have been in straight away years ago, but now, quote, these bleeps found out about it and now they're bleep everywhere. He went on to tell me he started life in Billericay as an 18-year-old scaffolder, but got into this game. Things then changed and the working classes were out. It's interesting that, isn't it? Because there was a point when it was a little bit like that. The shop floor of the city, as it were, was like the shop floor of a factory in the sense of people that frequented it. And then it changed. Is it going back? David, thank you, mate, for that. 0344 499 1000.
Only somebody like Rachel Reeves would take a tax-free savings product and apply a tax on it. So the parting gift of Rachel Reeves is that she is going to come for your ISA now and apply a 22% tax. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. Well, we're going to fight this every step of the way. I'm going to hopefully raise it in Parliament later today and try and put as much pressure on her.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 10 to 2. Let's go to your calls. Grant's in London. How are you doing, Grant?
Hello, Ian. I'm all right, mate. Are you?
Yeah, I don't like speaking to people with your accent, though. That's the problem. You sound a bit common to me, a bit working class.
Well, funny enough, nor does everyone else in the civil service and politics and stuff. But,
what do you got for us?
I've been listening to the show, like always, in the cab.
Yep.
And my son, I'm from a working class background in Kent and lived on council estates all my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got two lovely boys. My older boy, when he was about 16, had terrible trouble with his eyesight, had to have 2 operations, had impaired vision for about 18 months that put him back educationally,
of
right?
Course.
On his own back, he only went to a state school, went back to school, achieved 4 A-levels, 3 A stars, and 1 straight A.
Nice.
Right? So, he can't be my son, I guess, because I don't know where he's got his brain.
There is that, yeah.
But what I'm saying is he's done all that off his own back, working class kid, white working class kid, trying to get into Oxford, not a dicky bird. Not a dicky bird. And if you wonder why...
3 A stars and a straight... It's not got to be 4 A stars for Oxford, is it?
I don't know what it's got to be.
Well, you'd have thought so. Because the other point is that your lad's journey has been a longer and a greater one than a kid that went to Eton, for example, right?
Yeah, but we all know, Robert... sorry. Yeah.
You still there, Grant?
Yeah. We all know it's a class system, isn't it, yeah?
Well, it clearly is. Although when Oxford say they're trying to change this, it appears not to include people like your son.
No. And my son's tried to get into places, and he applied. The BBC only take graduates from ethnic minorities. The Law Society run a thing about 100 barrister trainee barristers, right? He wants to do law. Mm-hmm. And you had to be an ethnic minority to get into them. I mean, what is it saying?
I mean, the stupid thing is...
White working class kids?
But it's such a... In any other world, this level... These examples would be taught to kids as acts of stupidity. Because if you've got a kid, a non-white kid, who comes from a really good background, very educated, opulent, you know, the parents have got a nice house over there in Regent's Park. You know, the kind of situation.
Okay.
Yeah, that background. Now, they might well not be white, but they're far more advantaged than your son is in terms of expectations, confidence, background, terrain of conversations that are familiar to them. I mean, so your boy's background is actually a greater and a more extreme journey than his non-white counterpart.
Well, you've got classism. It gets trumped by racism, right?
And it's all bad stuff, right? And no one's...
nothing.
Correct. It doesn't mean that you can't understand racism, because that should be also treated as a crime scene. Of course it should. But the idea that you would preclude someone whose background is either disadvantaged, or in your case, a great background, because he obviously nicely brought up lad, but like you say, off his own back, went back to school despite some medical issues, got himself really top-notch A-level results, that's a journey. And that's a journey against the backdrop of others that would have done better because of their background. So straight there is a baked-in disadvantage to your own son.
And it's not good. It puts white working class kids mentally in a bad frame of mind.
Absolutely
thinking,
right.
What do we have to do, really? And, you know, what do we have to do to get a job nowadays? Yeah?
Fair, yeah. Spot on. Listen, I wish you and the boys luck. Grant, thank you, mate, for that. What a great way to start. Bang on the money with that. Miranda is in Cumbria. What have you got for us, Miranda? Afternoon to you.
Hello, afternoon. Well, my sister used to work in a very, very rough school in the middle of a council estate. Any child that showed any inclination to do well, there was one specific girl who wanted to go to Oxford, and she got to Oxford in the end. They put every resource they can into those children. But as it stands, I mean, she acquired the grades which she had to go. So essentially, it was a meritocracy, and that's what I truly believe. You cannot keep taking children who don't have the required grades. If you're talking about biology and chemistry, physics and research and things like that, you can't be coached. You have to be...
Yeah, I mean, this is... But again, isn't this the stuff that, like, my 12-year-old could work this out, Miranda. You know, if you start monkeying around with the grade system to allow people in because they have different characteristics, then sure. I mean, I wouldn't imagine that individual would want to go in based on that. I mean, there's so many stories of this of late.
It's true. It's lunacy, because at the end of the day, you want the best doctor, you want the best research scientist looking for the best form of treatment to cure cancer. And as it stands at the moment, if you're taking children at Oxford and Cambridge who are like B+ or whatever, do you honestly think they're going to be... They might, but they're going to put things like cancer research back by about 10 years just because of the DEI process. And you have to think the consequences of this. It's mental.
As somebody who didn't go to university, but now, of course, because of my job, and you know, I'm an older bloke now, I have plenty of friends that did and went to Oxford or Cambridge. I know so many of those people. I want the brightest to go there, right? I mean, that's the point. There's nothing... We shouldn't apologise for having an Oxford and a Cambridge. It's brilliant. These are globally renowned places, seats of learning. It should be the very best. I don't give a hoot what colour your skin is, your gender, sexuality. The very, very best. The absolute elite should be going there. You wouldn't apply it to a running club, would you?
No, and it's the same with in athletics. What would you do? Oh, well, you got the fastest time, but I'm sorry, you can't go to the Olympics this year. It's basically then you're going to take the person who came third in the race to represent your country.
I mean, those examples are the best examples, because they're very simple and obvious, and they can't be argued against. But you know, those that advocate this kind of nonsense, they stand by it. They're absolute stalwarts on this one.
There has to be a reason why they're doing this.
Because they think it makes them kinder people.
Not right.
They think that until you can physically, visually see diversity in all of its forms. They don't apply it, for example, to Polish people. There's 2 million Poles live in this country, and nobody says, oh, you know, we better get some Poles in the workplace, because those guys are mostly white people, so it doesn't work out in that respect. But if you happen to be brown and Polish, you'd probably be a shoo-in. Listen, Miranda, I've got to move just because of time. Another great call. There's more of this to come. Are white working-class kids left behind? But there's a whole plethora of other kind of tentacles to this one as well, including Andy Burnham's dream diverse cabinet. 50-50 all the way, please, Andy. That's how we'd like it. What a crock of old nonsense. Our lines are open. The time now, 2 o'clock. Here's the news.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, 0344 499 1000. Mark says, if I owned a tent factory, I want more poles. You had to be listening to the last hour to fully understand that, but made us chuckle. Thank you, Mark. 0344 499 1000. What have we got? White working class kids excluded from almost every Oxbridge diversity scholarship scheme, with schemes prioritising ethnicity over socio-economic backgrounds. This is despite, of course, white working class kids being among the most disadvantaged in the entire school system. You can't make this nonsense up. And yet institutions, big corporations, government, civil service, you name it, they dine out on this and they continue. It's almost as if they're enjoying it somehow. Also this afternoon, the Rochdale grooming gang leader, Shabir Ahmed, is set to walk free on Thursday despite having his British citizenship revoked, protected from deportation because of a legal loophole that Shabana Mahmood is now under pressure to try and close. I don't think he's got any hope of doing that, even if she wants to. And Labour have seen virtually no polling bounce since Starmer quit, as Burnham is forced to deny that he would be essentially the party's first female Prime Minister in all but sex, after a senior Labour figure claimed he was genuinely passionate about traditionally female-orientated issues. Why do people want to wear that as a badge of honour? Why can't people just accept, in whatever shape or form, that, you know, there is a person doing this job, they're female, they're bloke, they're black, they're white. I mean, seriously, does anyone with a scintilla of intelligence give a hoot about any of that old stuff? It's 2026. I work with loads of people of different backgrounds, genders, sexualities, you name it. I mean, all over the place. And I cannot, I've never gone home on the train and thought, oh, isn't it weird that our assistant producer is a girly bottom? I've never thought that. Not once. I don't have faith our assistant producer just buzzed into my ear going, what's a girly bottom? I don't know, actually. I just said it. I've got no idea. The fact that Finn, our producer, is yet to fully settle on his sexuality. I've never, ever kind of gone down that route and wondered about this stuff. Not for a second. I've now got people coming into the studio going, what's a girly bottom? Nobody knows. But nobody thinks this stuff. That's the insanity of where we're at. Let's speak to Brendan O'Neill, political writer and author, and all-man Brendan the last time I looked. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Ian. How's it going?
So, yeah, listen, I mean, look, there's a lot to get through here, and it's worth just having a little listen, Brendan, to Andy Burnham for a second, because, of course, Andy Burnham is the man that could be the first female MP, as he's been described, not his words, but the words being associated with him. But I just think this little soundbite from him gives us a little snapshot of where our Andy is at.
Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
There we go. Hope in every heart, Brendan. Just what you want from a Prime Minister during troubled times.
It's so woolly, isn't it? It's just these feel-good slogans, you know, they don't really mean anything. They kind of evaporate upon the merest investigation. There's nothing to it. And I thought that about his whole speech this week, actually, his whole policy speech, even though there were some big ideas, primarily about moving up north. It seems he wants to be a work-from-home Prime Minister, you know, staying up in Manchester, maybe doing Zoom calls with world leaders. You know, there was some stuff about rearranging the deck chairs, I guess, moving politics all around, but there were no answers to the big problems Britain is facing. You know, our broken borders, the net zero religion and the impact that's having on energy production, the education system, which you guys have been talking about, just the whole sense that our country isn't working at the moment. He hasn't got any real solutions to that. And these woolly phrases about hope in every heart, I mean, what is he, some kind of guru? He's supposed to be a political leader. That's what we want.
Well, he likes wearing sandals, and I think that's often the first clue, maybe. The other thing I think about this kind of Manchesterism sort of almost religion that he seems to have adopted of late. I mean, if you felt that strongly about it, then remain as the mayor of Greater Manchester. That would have been the best way to have kind of played that out, I suppose. But my experience usually, Brendan, of those people who kind of come from this sort of synthetic platform of superiority is that once Burnham gets into the ornate settings of Downing Street, and then even better than that, the beautiful weekend retreat, of course, of Chequers, I can't imagine him going, I'm going to leave this and go to Wigan for the weekend.
Yeah, I was just thinking that about Chequers. You know, he's all about, we don't have to be in Whitehall, we don't have to be in Downing Street, we can be up north. But I bet he's not going to turn his nose up to Chequers, is he? He's going to love that. They all love that. That's where they do their entertaining of, you know, foreign dignitaries and so on. Very palatial. It's very beautiful. The thing is, you know, people say that politics in this country is too London-centric. I don't know, maybe it is, but the point is that London is the beating heart of this country, politically speaking and economically speaking. It's one of the largest, busiest, most powerful cities on earth. Whitehall is where all the great offices of state are. That's where he has to be. He can travel around the country as much as he wants, but if he's going to connect with politicians and the people, he needs to do it from London.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, the idea that we have to sort of caveat an apology for the fact that Parliament is in the capital city. I mean, it's bonkers. I mean, that's where it is. It's where Westminster literally is. It's where the votes take place. I mean, unless we transport the whole thing to another part of the country, in which case we'd then just begin the whole argument again, but the other way round. I mean, it's nonsensical.
Yeah, Westminster is where power lies. That's the way it goes. In America, it's Washington, D.C., although they have the states as well. In France, it's Paris. In Ireland, it's Dublin. This is how politics works in independent nation states. You have a capital, and it's usually in the capital that you have the seats of power. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think, his kind of northern posing could get annoying quite quickly. I say this as someone who loves Manchester. Manchester is one of my favourite cities. I visit as much as I can. It's a great place. But if he does this whole northern man act, you know, that he loves the Smiths and he loves a pint of beer and he wears his yellow bee badge and all that stuff, that's going to get annoying quite quickly, because there is more to this country than London, but there's also more to this country than Manchester. And he has to speak to the whole country and not just to his kind of acolytes who hang on his every word in Manchester.
Indeed, and this idea that, you know, the people of Makerfield have different views on Westminster than the people of Maidstone, for example. I mean, it's nonsense. People have the same views, the same questions and concerns, no matter where they live. You could live a postcode away from Westminster and you would still have the same concerns. And you know what London's like, Brendan. It's full of... I mean, you can have lovely opulent areas. You walk around Westminster, you will find council estates. And that surprises some people, but they exist. And those people will have the same concerns as people in Wigan.
Well, I was in Makerfield and all around Wigan just before the by-election, and I spoke to as many people as I could. And you're absolutely right, Ian. They have the same concerns you hear in other parts of the country, including in parts of London, especially the working-class parts of London, the outer boroughs, where people are really concerned about our broken borders, out-of-control immigration, what they see as unfairness. They're worried about migrant hotels. I spoke to Robert Kenyon in Makerfield. He was the Reform candidate up there. He lost to Andy Burnham, of course. He told me that every doorstep he knocked on, the people raised the issue of immigration. They raised the issue of migrant hotels and migrant houses in the local area. They raised the issue of borders. They raised the issue of why do we as an independent nation not know who's coming here and why? And I think the political class is on a hiding to nothing if it doesn't recognise how important this issue is to people. And I don't think Andy Burnham does recognise that.
I think you're right. Well, it's interesting that despite this this claim to be man of the people and speaking a different language, and yes, he's a slightly better orator, I suppose, than Keir Starmer. He can deliver a speech with a little bit more naturalness, I guess. There hasn't been any significant bounce in the polls, I've noticed. I know that could be, you know, that could change, who knows. But support is up about 2 percentage points. I mean, that's not significant. It's not like suddenly Andy, the game changer, has turned up because he's just adopted a whippet.
Yeah, exactly. You're really right to caveat it by saying it could change, because I don't want to get too excited by this failure of the polls to go up, because it could well change. The better known he becomes, the more he kind of obviously moves towards power, people might get excited about him for a period of time.
Yeah.
So that could change. But at the moment, it's very interesting, because my theory is that Andy Burnham is largely an invention of the media. He really is an invention of the SW1 classes, who he claims not to have much in common with.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at who calls him King of the North, it's not people in Makerfield, it's not people in Manchester.
Yep.
Some of them are ticked off with some of his policies. For example, he tried to bring in a ULEZ style policy where people would have to pay to drive. That was catastrophically unpopular, and he had to ditch it. He's seen as having failed in certain ways on the grooming gang scandal. All he's got going for him is that he painted the buses yellow and brought them into public ownership. So there's a lot of skepticism about him in the North, actually, even though he's seen as a bit of a celebrity figure as well. It tends to be the kind of London chattering classes who see him as this great northern sage who might come down to London at some point and save us from doom, and more importantly, save us from populism.
Indeed.
I think the reason that the media elites are so excited about him is because fundamentally they hope he will tame the people's desire for a different kind of politics, and the people's love for reform and their desire to vote for Nigel Farage. They hope he will get all of that under control. So he's pretty much an invention of the media, and that's why it doesn't surprise me at this moment that he's not going so sky high in the polls.
Indeed. And what bothers me most, Brendan, about him is that the areas, the kind of common, the fact that we've lost our kind of our radar of common sense, and it seems to have been put in a dustbin somewhere over the last few years. It's that sort of area where I don't think he really... I mean, I'm thinking about things like net zero, mad gender issues, an issue we've been talking about, the disadvantage of young white working class kids. I don't think that's in Andy Burnham's political DNA to care about this stuff.
I really agree. You know, I'm a bit of a patriotic person. I want this country to do well. And I couldn't really care less which party does it. You know, if it was Labour or even the Lib Dems, God help us, if there was a party that would actually get a handle on the problems we face, I would support them. But I just can't see Andy Burnham doing that. He has drank from the Kool-Aid of wokeness many times over the years. He was very much on the side of the trans lunacy. I think most people can now recognize the idea that men should be able to go into women's spaces was crazy. He was on the side of that. He was very much on the side of mass immigration, and he in fact called for more funding for migrant accommodation, an issue that's incredibly unpopular. You know, he's a pretty woke politician. He kind of bows down to all the kind of chattering class platitudes about this country, and that's not what we need. He talked about a circuit breaker. He talked about being a circuit breaker in Britain. If you're really going to break the circuits in this country, you would loosen the stranglehold of that kind of politics and put people's concerns front and centre. I just can't see him doing that.
Indeed. And just a final word, Brendan, on that point, the disadvantage of working class kids, and yet simultaneously we have Oxbridge really curtailing the possibility of working class kids getting on any kind of bursary scheme in favour, simply in favour of non-white kids, even if the non-white kid might be from a wonderful background where Oxbridge was never a dream because it was always going to happen. Those kind of backgrounds. But if you're white and working class, you could be at a massive disadvantage again.
I just think what's happening at Oxbridge, the Oxbridge universities, is racism. This is racism, because if you are excluding a whole section of society on the basis of their skin colour, then you are behaving in a racist fashion. There's no two ways about it. As you say, you know, white working class kids, especially white working class boys, are falling behind catastrophically in education. Now they're being excluded from bursaries in universities. They're being treated like second-class citizens in their own country. It's really repulsive. And I think it demonstrates that identity politics is the enemy of working class communities. Because what these working class kids are told every day is that they are white, they're privileged, their history is just one crime after another. They should be ashamed of being British. They shouldn't cheer too loudly for the England team or wave the England flag. They are encouraged to hate themselves and to hate their country. And who would want to go to school or university in that kind of culture? So we need a massive overhaul of these racist policies at universities, but we also need to nip in the bud this identity politics that treats white kids as somehow evil.
Cracking point, Brendan. Can't disagree. Thank you, Brendan O'Neill, political writer and author with us here on Talk. Thank you to him. This one from Sean in Lincolnshire. Burnham and Manchester. He's copying his idols in the EU who swap parliaments every few months. I think it's every month. So if he can have London and Manchester, he's keeping up with Van der Leyens, rather than the Joneses, says Sean. Graham in Norwich says the prejudice towards the lower classes is nothing new. It's historic. You can go back to the Norman Conquest and before. There is snobbery, even hatred towards the impoverished white men who've always been considered knuckle-dragging Neanderthals, highlighted by their disdain for anyone with a regional accent. It's prejudice as blatant as any. It really is, and there's not really any other way you can kind of dress that up. I mean, it's not a kind of right-wingy kind of trope, an invention. This stuff is happening in real time. It's being streamed, if you like, right in front of us for all to see. It's not being hidden. Bursary schemes that include working-class kids, schemes to work, employment schemes to work in big institutions, whether it's the BBC, whether it's a big bank. Similarly, yeah, we don't, this is only open to people from ethnic minority backgrounds. You think, really? And worse than that, schemes that will reduce or recalibrate the required qualifications for a certain job or entrance to a place of education specifically in order to get people who visually look different, i.e. non-white. I mean, you really can't make this up, but that's where we're at. That's what I want Andy Burnham to do. I want him to say, all this shizzle and nonsense, all this flannel juice and gibberish that's being wheeled out from unis and banks, get rid of it. Let's get rid of it all. I mean, Starmer, once talked about trying to be stop people from being reported for non-crime hate incidents. Now, that's still happening. Someone to get really, really evangelical about it. Not about his accent, not about the fact that he likes a cup of tea and he likes the Smiths, as Brendan just said. But stuff that matters to people, stuff that really affects people's lives. Common sense. 0344 499 1000. Back with more from you, and there's loads to come. This is Talk.
Old news. On to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham. Just drove through there on his way to the Palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000. Rob in Burnley says, we're told to respect our politicians and people in authority, but what type of person benefits from an institutional setup to then pull up the ladder? My verdict is, despite their proclamations, these people aren't very nice. No, they're not very nice, and they are insane. And these are not cheap and mischievous words. Genuinely believe there is an insanity that underpins this, partly based on the fact they think it makes them a nicer person, but also based on the almost self-flagellating nature of people of that part of the political spectrum who believe that, well, you know, the whites have had it good enough for a long time. I mean, I think that's an odd thing to say in a country that is mostly populated by people of that colour. However, I don't imagine you'd get away with that in Lagos, in Nigeria, by saying, I think the blacks have had it too good for too long. They go, well, we are 90% of us, possibly more, in Nigeria. But you take the point. Tristan is over there in Bedford. What have you got for us, Tristan? Afternoon.
Afternoon, Ian. I agree with mostly everything you and your guest have said, but there's one thing that you haven't. It's opinion. If you have a different opinion, well, I ended up losing my job because I had a different opinion, and I was with my company for over nearly 10 years.
Seriously?
Seriously. And I had to sign. I had a without prejudice non-disclosure agreement. I'm not going to go into detail.
Wow, so you're not allowed to talk about it either, which makes it even more bizarre and sinister.
So it's, I had different opinions, and I was told that, you've got to go, basically.
Yeah.
And in the new company that I work for, I have to self-censor myself because I can't give my actual opinions because if I did, I probably wouldn't employ me.
But do you know what? I've said this before. So where I live, in what they call leafy Sevenoaks, which is about as archetypal middle-class area of quite a lot, disproportionate wealth and all the rest of it, you know. Mm-hmm. It's also, like any other area, got ordinary places and council houses. It's got all of that. But I constantly bump into people who are of that nature, where something that actually isn't controversial or offensive, they believe is controversial and offensive. So your idea of your views, and I'm sure if you told me what they were, it wouldn't in any way, I probably wouldn't go, oh, that's a weird thing to think. I'd probably go, yeah, that's a fair enough. But the amount of people...
It was to do with energy, that's all I'll say.
To do with energy? Oh, my God, it wasn't even to do with, like, ethnicity, which, like, would have taken us maybe into a different postcode, but to do with... I mean, how can you offend anybody over your energy ideas? I mean, this is nonsense. But
energy policy, that's all I'll say.
No, I get it. I can hear what you're saying. But people, I can imagine people that I see...
Same thing with my new job. Same thing with my new job as well, by the way.
Yeah, there are people I know in my neck of the woods. I reckon if I said to them, you know, Ed Miliband, you know, he's actually pathologically mad. He's a certified lunatic and he thinks the world's going to end. Somebody very quickly in the group, in the pub, would go, well, the world is going to end. And if you don't think so, there's something wrong with you. You would get that view, you know, and I find it extraordinary. I've told this story before, Tristan. I was talking about, somebody said to me, it was like a neighbourhood, like, drinks thing somebody did, and I went along to it, never been to one before. This woman said to me, what is it you talk about on your show? And I said, quite a lot about immigration, especially channel migration. And she said, I know, what are we going to do about these poor people on the channel? And she thought I was talking about a humanitarian crisis, like a Bob Geldof thing. You know, it was going to be some kind of fundraiser. She didn't for one second think there was a problem. But it's that kind of thinking.
I advise, one of my neighbours is having an air source heat pump, and I gave my my opinion, and they think it's a great idea having that. So, I mean, I live in, Bedford, it's quite...
Well, I mean, the idea you could lose your job over a heat pump argument, I mean, it's just like...
I wanted to add something else, if you don't mind.
Yes, please do.
The thing is, with Andy Burnham, the thing is, unless he puts any focus on net zero and immigration, he's going to fall flat on his face. And now he's got defence as well. Those are the three things that you have to. If he doesn't focus on that, he's going to be gone.
I know. I keep saying this though, and I do wonder.
Within 12 months.
Yeah, well, that's likely. But is there this haunting thought that I keep coming back to. Are there more people that think like Andy than think like Nigel in the country?
Well, I will say the final thing I will say is that I know you might have probably already heard this already, but I guarantee Ed Miliband will be Chancellor. I guarantee that.
I mean, that's just you've just upset my afternoon when I'm about to watch an amazing football match in a couple of hours. What are you doing to me here?
Well, one of my friends works on the exchanges, and he's told me that 75 to 80% is definitely Ed Miliband. Definitely.
Wow. Oh dear, I feel rather. So I might. No wonder you got fired, frankly, if that's the kind of stuff you come out with, Tristan.
I wasn't fired. They signed a mutual agreement.
No, I get it. I'm messing. Brilliant. Listen, great call. Thank you for that, Tristan in Bedford. I mean, the thought you could have had to or been politely asked to part company with your employer on the basis of an opinion on energy. I mean, wow. But I can see that. I genuinely can see that if you don't follow a script of sorts, then that could, some people see that as a compromising thing. I mean, you know that whole gender madness, you know, that when you hear these stories, you see them online, and you think it must be AI. When somebody says, I was asked to fill out this form, look at the gender choices, and there's like 22 different genders, and you're meant to tick one box. And you think, well, that's got to be nonsense, and it's not. And some places do have that. And there was one a couple of years ago from a very well-known bank, global bank, but based here, who had literally gone there. And they thought it was great. It's all part of our... because they did this thing, I can't remember the name of it now, when companies started developing a conscience. So it's not that individuals within the company or the chairman or, you know, whoever had a view on things. The company had a view. Well, what's the name of that? There is a name they gave to this where you suddenly developed sort of environmental and social views, but the company, an inanimate object, had these views. As a company, we believe this and we believe that. And if you sort of fell outside of their almost code, their little bullet point list of what they think is correct, proper, and right, then you're toast. I mean, you wouldn't get a look in if you let your thoughts be known at an interview, and you would struggle if you let your thoughts be known even if you'd worked there for a decade. And that's how bonkers it kind of is. When you're arguing against and these initiatives were largely they didn't apply everywhere, of course. You didn't suddenly have, in this sort of rosy, wokey world of corporate self-flagellation, second use of that phrase, you didn't have this idea where they thought, oh, and to show that we're really, really socially on point, the chairman's going to give half his salary to the RSPCA or something. That never happened. And those at the security guys that work on the door, who are mostly black guys, by the way, we're going to pay them double the money because they do a great job. No, there was none of that happened. Just all the stuff that looks good in a press release. I mean, it's just cobblers, right? 0344 499 1000. It's 2:30. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
One here doesn't say where it's from. My son had 9 GCSE top grade 4 A-star levels, no acceptance from Oxford. LSE offered it immediately, ended up top class honours and Luke Boven prize winner at State School Working Class. I can't tell you how much I love that. And I'll have to keep saying this. That journey is far... It's far more accelerated and impressive than the journey of a kid that went to Westminster School or Winchester School or Eton College. Of course it is. There's no inventing the wheel saying that. If you're coming from a state school background and a working class background and you've got there, then that's a greater journey and should be acknowledged and recognised. A mate of mine, I said that he used to work in the media, but he doesn't anymore. But his dad was quite a famous person on TV. And it was so weird that he would talk about what their Saturday nights were like and who was around the table at a dinner party. I mean, I found it mind-blowing. We used to sit at home and watch the Generation Game with a bag of peanuts and a cheap Coca-Cola. And he was sitting there with all sorts of characters from the, you know, Parkinson was there and Gloria Hunniford showed up and then, you know, a little bit of Richard Branson at one point showed. So, bloody hell, really? Wow. Now, his background, him getting into the media, as he did, he was only in it for about 5 minutes, hated it, and did something else. But him getting into the media was no great mystery to him, no great mystery whatsoever. Me getting into the media, from my background, is still a flipping mystery. It's a mystery to me. It's a mystery to everybody I work with. I'm still waiting for the tap on the shoulder. 0344 499 1000. Now, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is under pressure to close a loophole which will allow a Pakistani grooming gang ringleader to stay in the UK after his release from prison tomorrow. Shabir Ahmed was convicted of 30 child rape offences but can't be deported despite having his British citizenship revoked. What I find disturbing about this is that he's being released partly halfway through, not quite halfway through, because he got 22 years and 19 years in jail. But he's being released after 15. How many children do you have to rape to stay in jail? I mean, he raped 30 children, 30 rapes, some of the same child, but you take the point. And he's coming out? Let's get a word from Maria Botel, Head of Local Government for Restore Britain, Ward Councillor in Bridlington too. Maria, nice to see you again. I don't even know where to start with this, right? I mean, you know, there's certain situations you read it and you think, maybe I must have read this wrong, I'll read it again. But no, this is where we're at.
It is, and it's just to highlight the example of, for me as a taxpayer, my taxpayers' money has been spent on this foreign national who has come here, broken many laws. We've only found guilty of 30 rapes, but actually how many were there? He's known as the leader. And we know from the rape gang inquiry that Rupert Lowe's conducted that there are a lot more that never went to court, never will go to court because of the lack of evidence and the amount of evidence that was buried or God knows what happened to it.
Yeah.
So this gentleman not only has kind of lived off the taxpayer for the 15 years he's been in prison, instead of, you know, in my opinion, referendum, definitely agree with that for the death penalty in cases, especially such as these. I think raping one child is enough to get that sentence, in my opinion. It's not a party policy, but in terms of like the fact that we've paid to keep him alive and comfortable in a prison, and I'm pretty sure prison isn't a welcome break, of course, but ultimately, has that man not done enough to either be permanently deported or permanently removed from the earth? That to me is justice, not giving him 3 hot meals a day and a bed to sleep in for 15 years and then letting him live his life like nothing happened with someone watching him. And you look at what happened to that child in the zoo that got thrown into the crocodile pit with the alligators or whatever it may be. That was apparently watched by 2 carers. So you're saying this man can be trusted with 24-hour surveillance? Well, who's going to do the surveillance? Because I don't trust that man to be alive anymore. He's forfeit the right to life, in my opinion, and he needs to be publicly hanged, not released early. And if he's going to be released early, I certainly don't want to be looking after him and paying for someone to watch his 24.
Well, indeed, because this will continue to. I mean, it's bad enough that we had to pay for him in the first place to be put in jail, but he was warm, he was safe, he was given 3 meals a day, probably had access to a library and a gym and facilities and amenities that many people outside of jail don't get. So that irks us anyway when you're a prolific paedophile. But to then come out and discover that that's going to continue, where the state will be offering some level of protection. He's 73. He's still a paedophile, because if that's your thing and that's what you think is okay, as he clearly did, and I would imagine still does.
The judge was racist for even sentencing him in the first place, despite the evidence. So, and then apparently it wasn't anything about race or religion. It wasn't, hatred of our people that led him to do what he did. Of course not.
No, he loved little white girls. It was nothing to do with the colour of their skin. Listen, he was 73. Now, when this offence happened, and this is the loophole, Maria, is that the deportation can't happen because of a provision in the Act that exempts Commonwealth citizens who arrived in the UK before 1973 from being removed. Had he arrived a few years later, you could have removed him, but because he came under that, they can't remove him.
You can still remove him. I think it's just a lack of political will. The whole point of government is to make and change laws based on, what's best for the British people. And ultimately, it's not best for the British people to have this man here. So they can change the rules, they can change that law, they can grow a spine and actually do what's needed to remove people like this from our country. It is just lack of political will. And to say otherwise is ridiculous. I think even Andy Burnham agreed that this man should be deported back in 2022 from an article I read.
Yeah. We live in very
strange... If he sticks to it, let's see if he sticks to what he said and deports him.
I mean, a case such as this, we should be, this should be on the front pages almost every day. The fact that this animal, this horrendous, horrific creature, is now going to walk among us again, years after spending, 15 years of a 22-year prison sentence, 15 of those. I can't believe you can be allowed out early. I know there's a system in place and it applies to I get that. Nonetheless, we've seen people jailed for indefinitely for child sex offences. This person wasn't. 30 child rape offences, and he's about to walk out the jail tomorrow a free man. What sort of world are we living in?
It's not justice. If you look at, I actually watched the Citizen Vigilante video on X while it was free to watch.
I'm still yet to
and for
indulge.
Me, it really hit home in that sense of there's a lot of righteous anger at the fact that justice is not being done.
Sure.
You do have judges not giving people a slap on the wrist for rape.
Yeah.
Or they didn't know better. That is actually happening, and it does feel like you're living in this dystopian world where there is no justice, and the justice that there is two-tiered. And I think watching that, I do not condone vigilante, but it is stark when you can see how a movie like that is almost our reality. And is that what the government wants it to come to? And if they don't want it to come to that kind of level of vigilante work, they need to actually pull the finger out, grow the spine, and actually deport these people and deliver justice.
We often talk about, the cultural clashes and how, this defence that some people give, I didn't know any different. And I just think, actually, that's not true, because some people are from countries where if you committed that kind of act, they might be deep in the Middle East, they chop your nuts off and set you on fire in the village square. I mean, you wouldn't get away with it. So I've never understood why judges have kind of almost gone, well, you didn't know any better. Yeah, these people came from places where you'd have a bullet in your head if you did anything like this.
Yeah, and it is just that lack of... There's no fear of the consequences in this city.
Yeah.
Not in this city, in this country anymore. I think people of a certain races or minorities think they're exempt. And it comes back to the comment he made to the judge when he got sentenced. You're racist. So they shout, you're racist, yet the victims were actually subject to racist abuse.
Oh, completely.
And that wasn't even acknowledged because it was white people or, you know, or it was an ethnic minority that committed the offence. You're not allowed to say it was racist.
This is almost this is Premier League racism, if you like. I mean, it's as bad as racism can get, where you believe that not just somebody is inferior to you, they're so inferior that raping them, abusing them, beating them, plying them with drugs and alcohol is perfectly fine because they're white. It almost doesn't get any worse than that.
No, and it's the fact that we've culturally allowed that to grow and not addressed it for years and years and years. And this man's been here since 73. And okay, yes, he was caught for 30 offences, but that's what we have proof for. I've known rape cases that never got to court because there wasn't enough proof. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean there weren't more than 30 girls. And it doesn't mean that he wasn't then the instigator of many other things. And part of a community that hid it and thinks it's acceptable. Those people in those communities, he's actually going to go home and potentially be welcomed back into that community.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, there'll be people that are around him, there'll be family and friends who think this man's done absolutely nothing wrong and will be perfectly relaxed at either denying that the victims ever existed, or even if they did, they were, quote, asking for it. And, you know, he's a free man. He'll be celebrated. They'll be sitting down with a nice glass of water and chinking the glassware this evening.
Well, I hope not.
Well, I hope not too. Just a final point, Maria. We had the Rupert Lowe rape gang inquiry. Didn't have... By definition, it was smaller, it didn't have quite the profile, but for those that were interested in finding more, the information was and still is there. There's, of course, a bigger inquiry, the huge national inquiry that's going to be looking into this, starting with a select few towns and cities, including London, which the mayor, as I'm sure you're aware, pretty much denied even there was a problem. Are you hopeful that this will come to something, that there'll be some sort of conclusion? I don't know whether retribution is the right word, whether acknowledgement or justice is the right word, but something that says this inquiry is going to cost a lot of money to do. It's going to take a long time as well. Do you think anything positive will come of this for the victims?
I think it has to. I think it's already been quite positive for a lot of the victims who were involved in the inquiry that Rupert did, just to be heard and for someone to believe them and someone to make a record of it and someone to publish it in black and white and say, this is what happened, we believe you. And just based off that, the amount of strength, I think that's given a lot of the victims and confidence for other victims to come forward, that people are starting to listen and realise that this isn't made up. And this did happen. I think the national inquiry is going to be important. I do believe that the people from the Rupert's inquiry have been asked to be part of it now, or to feed information that's gained in the inquiry to that. So then there's a lot of over the next few years while that inquiry goes on, the further work we do will have to be very careful to not jeopardise the national inquiry. And whether they've invited people to do the national inquiry to just stop us from being able to do anything else with the inquiry we've already done is yet to be seen, but we will cooperate. Oh, well, I say that they will cooperate. I'm technically not part of the rape gang inquiry. I work with Restore Britain, but there are staff that cross over into both. So I've heard these stories firsthand, as well as the team that have been putting together the report over a grueling amount of weeks. Not easy reading, let alone writing.
Absolutely. Maria, lovely to have you on again. Thank you for your time. Maria Botel, who's Head of Local Government for Restore Britain. Thank you to her. Over to you, 0344 499 1000. Loads of great comments coming in from you. Francis in Clonelly says, the only advantage I can see from Burnham disappearing up north on a regular basis is that numpty Steve Bray having to spend a fortune on travel, so he won't have enough left for the batteries in his ghetto blaster. Let's hope. It's a good point, actually. Bray, that absolute numbskull that likes to knock out a tune or two on his big Bluetooth speaker, did it when Starmer was resigning, if you remember. Straight, there was some tune playing. He's done it all over the place, and he's not, he's not a good force for democracy. He's not about it's freedom of speech. No, he's just a nut job. Is he going to rally up the M6, up the M1, on the train, in a Uber, in ever just skateboard, whatever, with his speaker to do the same at number 10 Manchester? We will wait and see. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Bloody trains. 0344 499 1000. Afternoon, Ian. I wonder if the rape gang leader who is being released tomorrow had to go before a parole board, and if he did, why on earth did they think he was safe to go back on the streets? I mean, it's completely piss belief. I don't even know where to begin on this. This one came in from... let me try and find this again. After I'd mentioned Wigan, I mentioned the difference between going to Chequers and to Wigan. Mike, by the way, says, great shout out for Maidstone United this afternoon, Ian. Yeah, pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Yeah, I did mention Wigan. I said that Chequers would probably be... I don't think I said it was... Well, he's got a choice. He can go to Wigan or he can go to Chequers. But I would also say he could go to Chequers or he could go to Canterbury, anywhere, really. If you're told that your weekend home is this opulent, plush, beautiful, verdant, historic, massive house where everyone from Churchill to Thatcher had spent their weekends, and acres of woodland, just an immense view of everything. You can go out in the morning and shoot a gazelle, eat it for lunch, and sit there in the evening with fine wines and a butler. I mean, I'd be there. I wouldn't just be there. I'd live there. I'd be there all week, let alone I wouldn't be moving. It would be number 10 Chequers. I'd just move the whole operation into there. 0344 499 1000. Right, Voice of Doom, day 11. So this is the mystery voice, which is... it was Dave, 43, on X, by the way, who said, oi, Collins, nothing wrong with Wigan. I do agree with that, by the way. And also, Kath says... no, it wasn't Kath. It was UK John, who says, leave Bosch alone, as in Thomas Skinner. Because I mentioned Thomas Skinner had a baby, or his wife had a baby, and he had a photograph taken with his kid, the bare-chested thing, which men are told you should do this to bond with your baby. I mean, apart from the fact you do it for about 2 seconds, and then you give the baby back to the mum where the baby can get some food. I've never quite understood that. I didn't do that. I've had 2 kids, didn't do that. I didn't whip out me Whatsits so that the baby could rest on my chest and gain some kind of, I can't remember what the chemical is supposed to do, and it made no discernible difference. That kid will still snot on you, vomit on you, dribble on you, cry on you, and mostly rely on you, regardless of whether you go bare-chested as a dad. Right, Voice of Doom, day 11. It's mystery voice, which means, of course, you've got to try and identify who it is. It's political. It's always political, so it's either a politician or somebody obviously connected to the world of politics, in wherever that might be. They could be dead or alive, left-wing or right-wing, male or female. Simple question. Who is this?
Any of the noble aspirations...
I've even forgotten who it is, by the way. Let's hear it again.
Any of the noble aspirations...
If you think you know there's only one way to get in touch, 87222, you win precisely nothing other than the honour of winning. 87222, if you know who this is.
Any of the noble aspirations...
It's a stinker. It is quite hard. Day 11. They don't often get to day 11 before somebody has got the right answer. Nobody so far. Here it is one more time.
Any of the noble aspirations...
87222. Let's go to Jenny in North Ayrshire. Jenny, how you doing?
Hi, I'm not bad, Ian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What are your thoughts?
I keep listening to Keir Starmer, and he keeps saying how the boats have reduced, but then earlier the boat people coming over they've reduced the boats.
Yeah.
So, but in the EU earlier this month, at the beginning of the month, they put through stronger borders, and in the EU Parliament they actually stood up. There was an ovation, a clapping ovation, because they managed to get it through. So now they're stopping people at the border, they're putting them in the camps, they're processing them within 7 days and sending them back. And I just wonder if this is the reason that there is a fall in the people coming over. Obviously, there's still some left that have managed to get, that are already there and getting through. But my concern is, how long will it take the smugglers to circumvent this?
Well, that's usually the way, isn't it?
It isn't Keir Starmer that has stopped the boats. It's Germany, France. It's them that have stopped the immigration.
Yeah, I don't think
nothing to do with Keir Starmer.
No, because if you do happen to get on a boat and arrive here, you get all the trimmings that go with it. So that bit hasn't changed. The pull factor has not changed. It's still there. You're absolutely right, Jenny. There'd be another reason why people. And if you think about it, I don't know what the latest numbers. Do we know, Finn, what latest numbers have been? I mean, if you think about it, Jenny, certainly down there on the south coast, it's been about sort of a month, pretty much, of pretty good weather, and on some days the weather has been off the scale, 36, 37 degrees. We do know that on one of those weeks there were 1,000 people showed up, I think, in one day, which was the highest one day for this year. But beyond that, you're right, I've not heard a lot of headlines lately as to what's been happening, and the weather has been good, the seas have been calm, so normally perfect terrain for people to make that journey.
As I say, and it's nothing to do with Starmer stopping the boat.
Yeah.
It's...
No, there's no, like, they haven't gone... Suddenly all these guys in Calais haven't suddenly gone, oh, my God, Keir Starmer's got very strict. Let's not make this journey. Let's go back to whatever country we choose. That hasn't happened.
No, I think the smugglers will circumvent it and they'll come in from somewhere else, make a roundabout journey, and they'll still come here because we're still offering the same.
Yeah, still offering the same indeed.
Absolutely.
Listen, Jenny, great call, great point. Thank you very much indeed for that. 0344 499 1000. So latest figures that we've got. It's interesting. What happened on June the 26th? So, OK, let me start you on... Yeah, let me start you on June the 24th. So June the 24th, 221 migrants arrived on small boats. June the 25th, 150. June the 26th, 0. What happened on June the 20th? What day was June the 26th? It was a Friday. June the 27th, 105. Was there a national holiday in Calais on the 26th or something? 28th, 78, 29th, and that was a Monday, no boats. The 30th, 63 boats. So you've got, what, 221, 321, 371, 471, 5, about 600 between the 24th of June and the 30th of June. So that's a sizable amount. You've still got over 100 a day on average. Apparently a lot happened. Oh, OK. Something did happen on June the 26th, so we'll get some details on that. But when the weather is good, that is perfect territory for migrant crossings for obvious reasons. 0344 499 1000. What happened on June the 26th? It was World Drug Day, by the way, so maybe they were just all off their face. It was also World Refrigeration Day. It was National Take Your Dog to Work Day. Imagine bringing your dog to work. I've got a dog, but she's a nut job. It was National Canoe Day. It was National Stitch Day. I don't know whether that's stitch as in Lilo or stitch as in sewing. And it was National Cream Tea Day. Maybe it was all of those reasons. Here's the voice of doom.
Any of the noble aspirations.
If you get it right, we'll tell you next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome to the home of Common Sense. Coming up on 3 minutes after 3 o'clock, we're talking about white working class students excluded from almost every Oxbridge diversity scholarship, with schemes prioritising ethnicity over socio-economic backgrounds. This, of course, is despite, and we talked about this story earlier in the week, despite working class kids being among the most disadvantaged in the entire school system. I mean, seriously, these people are off the scale stupid. Also this afternoon, Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed is set to walk free on Thursday despite having his citizenship revoked. He's protected from deportation by a legal loophole. Apparently the Home Secretary is now under pressure to close the loophole, but I don't think there'll be any legal possibility of that ever happening. And Labour has seen virtually no polling bounce since Keir Starmer quit. It's the QU that did it, as Burnham is forced to deny he would be the party's first female Prime Minister in all but sex after a senior Labour figure claimed he was genuinely passionate about traditionally female-orientated issues. What does that even mean? Do you know, I'll tell you what's infuriating. There's lots of things that are infuriating. When a bloke describes themselves as a feminist, I just think, I mean, it's not get in the bin, get in the sea, mate. It's just stupid. Basically, I'm a feminist. If by that you mean you are pro-equality, I don't, by the way, it's 2026, I genuinely don't know anyone who's not pro-equality. I think it's a bit of a weird... It's not even a question you have to... There might be some people who aren't very good at showing it, and there might be people who discriminate because they want an all-boys club, or some girls who want an all-girls club, whatever. But to be a feminist as a bloke, I think, is sort of an impossible position. It's... I don't know, it's a bit like me calling myself a black guy, isn't it? It's sort of in that territory. I could try and get away with it for a bit. I think I might be rumbled early doors. Certainly upon meeting somebody, I think that might be possibly the giveaway. So, yeah. Anyway, Andy Burnham is the ultimate feminist. Very strong on women's issues. What are women's issues, by the way? I mean, that could be a whole phone-in itself, apart from things that are obviously women's issues, like maternity issues and things connected to that. Other areas that are not so happy, domestic violence and disproportionality in those areas, I get that as well. But, I mean, broadly speaking, what are women's... It makes no sense, right? 0344 499 1000. Now, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced that asylum seekers will no longer be housed in modern luxury developments. Right, well, this comes just a day after it was revealed by us on the programme that 83 migrants are set to be moved into 21 brand new houses worth 250,000 quid apiece on an estate in Shropshire. What is going on? Let's speak with Henry Bolton, international border control expert. Always good to gauge your views, Henry, on these things. It seems extraordinary that it has to take a decision of a Home Secretary to say there's something wrong with this.
Yeah, whilst the rest of the country looks on aghast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've said frequently, and it's sort of, even I get bored of saying it, I'm hearing myself repeat it, but the government seems to be incapable of hearing the British public. The reason that the French, for example, don't cooperate in the way that the government would like them to is because the French are absolutely convinced that the reason that we've got this flow across the channel, or the majority of this flow across the channel, is because we in the United Kingdom persist in treating these illegal migrants almost better than we treat our own citizens. It's a pretty good deal for these people. And every single one of them that arrives and is put up in a four-star hotel or in some of these houses that we've seen is on the phone to their mates over in France or somewhere in Europe or in Sudan or Somalia and saying, you know what? This is a pretty good deal that's going on here. Why don't you get yourself over? It's a pull factor. And if the government can't see that, then for God's sake, what are they doing as the government? What are they doing anywhere near Westminster and the governing of this country? Because they don't deserve to be. That's the bottom line here. We've got an either incompetent or ideologically driven government that lacks courage, that lacks the hearing ability to listen to the British public, and therefore lacks democratic respect, and all of the above. Really, it's a mess.
It's a big mess, isn't it? Because I know that politicians are never going to get everything right in the eyes of everybody, and it depends on how you vote. And I'm sure there's some Labour people that think, and maybe some Lib Dems thrown in for good measure, Henry, and certainly the Greens, that think any immigration policy of any sort is a terrible thing indeed, and we should be dealing with better things. There's that mad lot, but beyond that, I think most people, even the average. I've got mates who vote Labour. I reckon if I said to them over a pint, you really think it's OK to stick a load of people in a brand new £250,000 house when down the road there's former service personnel living in shop doorways, there's homeless people, there's young couples that are on the social housing waiting list, that they've been there for 10 years. I don't think anybody would disagree with me.
No, but then you say that. But I have conversations with people, and the vast majority are, as you say, even if they're sort of dyed in the wool Liberal Democrats or Green Party, there is a little bit, for most people, there's a little bit of accepting that we're not getting this right. So there is the sort of that little core of potential that we will actually, people will change their tack. But there are still a lot of people out there who are fundamentally naive. They do believe that these people are fleeing persecution and death and torture and human slavery. These are people who, I don't know where they get their information from, but they are people who have never been to the places that these people come from. They have never seen and had to work with, as I have, or work through, the very issues as to why there is conflict, why those areas have got the problems that they have, for example, Sudan, Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Syria, Afghanistan, and all these places. There is a fundamental reason, and it is basically down to culture. And, these people who are fleeing are actually part of that culture, whether we like it or whether we don't. And with that, they bring their own culture, and that is a culture that is inured to violence. That is a culture that is intrinsically self-serving. And that, I'm not saying that as a personal criticism. I'm saying that as an observation, having spent 20 plus years working in such places. And it is the environment that breeds that. Now, if we bring those people in, we've got a problem. So yet there are people in this country who simply don't accept that argument. They just think that anybody who comes from a war zone or is less well off than the average Brit has every right to seek a better life. And they do have a right to seek a better life, but the British government has a right to protect, preserve and secure the British way of life, the British economy, the integrity and the capacity of British public services. And this government and previous governments have failed in that duty.
Absolutely right. And it seems that this one obviously came, I would imagine a local authority were responsible for allocating these brand new houses. And clearly at some point, with respect to Shabana Mahmood, she obviously went into work and went, I'm sorry, that cannot happen. And clearly everything suddenly fell apart, and no longer are they going to go into this accommodation.
Yeah, but to be fair to the local authorities as well, most of them don't want it. I live down in Kent, and Kent for a very long time, for years now, many years, has had this problem with particularly unaccompanied children.
Yep.
And the government's giving them virtually no support to deal with that. There are councils out there that are being, required by central government, by the Home Office, to put these people up. They're struggling to put up, to accommodate and cater for British homeless people, and then they're having these people thrust upon them as well. They have no choice. They're not being given the resources to deal with it. And when we talk about the cost of illegal immigration and the people coming, the asylum seekers and so on. I don't believe for a moment that all of these elements are factored in, because they're sort of farmed out, they're dispersed, and it's very difficult to actually identify what costs lie where and with whom. So I think, you know, we've got to, if we want to solve the problem, we also have to understand that some of the people who are making decisions in local authorities are making the only decisions that they can whilst having this thrust upon them. It's unfair on them, it's unfair on the community, it's unfair on everybody, apart from the Home Secretary.
I think I'm right in saying that Kent County Council have an you may know more than, I'm sure you do, Henry. Kent County Council have an obligation to look after a child migrant until they're 25.
Yeah. Yeah, and the costs and
what's that all about?
And well, you know, there is the, you know, if you're going to allow migrants who have come in illegally into the community, and you're just going to allow that to happen, in fact, that's your policy, which is what's happening, then somehow these people do have to be supported with healthcare, with welfare, with translation services, with accommodation, with education. And for a child, that includes, you know, transport here and there and all the rest of it. It's a massive expense. It's a huge draw on resources. So I have always advocated the secure detention, appropriately, but secure nonetheless, of every single person who enters this country illegally, man, woman and child, as I say, appropriately. The facilities have to be provided. But then if you do that, then I believe that I agree with the French on this, then we are addressing the pull factor. You give these people translation services, healthcare, welfare, accommodation, you know, all the rest of it. And increasingly some people want to give them the ability, the opportunity to work, to pay their own way. Well, that's just encouraging the whole process. So we are going to get more and more and more people coming across as long as we provide those pull factors. And that includes pull factors for children. Because if children come here, then, you know, and a lot of, again, it's back to that naivety. People think that in other parts of the world, societies treat children in the same way that we do. If they can get a young child over to the UK, then they know full well that the parents, the uncles, the aunts, and everybody else will be able to come over as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're making a rod for our own backs.
A couple of other points here to raise with you, Henry. Article 8 of the ECHR, of course, this is the right to a family life. It's always been contentious and has been used and abused all over the place. But they're going to rewrite, apparently, elements of this, which will mean that illegal migrants will be barred from using that particular law to fight their deportation case unless they live with their children or spouse. And the suspicion being is that people that had argued this didn't actually live with anybody. They just claimed it because the lawyer said, well, give it a go, it'll probably work. 77,000 migrants were allowed to stay in the UK on the basis of Article 8 last year alone. So it does work, but now you've got to be able to prove your kind of living setup in order for that to be a valid case.
Yeah, if they're here, then they're allowed to bring dependents here as well in many cases. I don't think this is going to work. This is scratching the surface. It might have a slight impact, but you know, the Home Secretary, when she became Home Secretary, she said she was going to sort of copy Denmark. She is not copying Denmark. In Denmark, they have, in domestic law, they have defined what family life is. They have defined what integration is. They have defined all of these things that actually Article 8, you know, when it says the right to settled life, the right to family life, and so on, then here we haven't defined that in law. In Denmark, they have, and they've defined it very, very, very tightly. Yeah. And that means that when Article 8 is invoked by an appeals lawyer or so, then actually the Danish state is able to say, well, no, this person doesn't speak Danish and therefore has not integrated. Therefore, they don't have settled life. They've made no effort to have a settled life and to integrate. Therefore, they don't qualify under Danish law. So, and that satisfies the European Convention on Human Rights, Article 8. So for some reason, this government does not want to go down that road. It absolutely must do until such time as we're able to withdraw from the ECHR. And I have to say, you know, the idea of leaving the ECHR, which I support, at first I didn't. A few years ago, I flagged this up and I said, if we do not now go all out to try and amend the European Convention on Human Rights, at least try, then when the eventual solution is going to have to be far more dramatic, which is going to be leaving. Now, we have to leave now. But it takes a year, takes 12 months to do that. In that 12 months, what, are we going to just sit down and do nothing? Or are we going to invoke or pass domestic legislation to close this loophole down, as the Danish have done very successfully?
And finally, an immigration story from the across the pond over there in America, where the Supreme Court have crushed Donald Trump's attempt to end the birthright citizenship rule. This is all about the 14th Amendment, where you could be illegally in the country, you could have a baby, but the baby then has the right to citizenship because they're born on American soil, and that's what the 14th Amendment is all about. Donald Trump wanted to overturn this. We can understand his reasoning, but it was a 6-3 landmark decision. 3 conservative judges sided against Trump on this. I don't know what their thinking was, but as it stands, the birthright citizenship rule remains intact.
Yeah, well, it's a constitutional issue for the United States because, and this actually sort of goes back to the whole slavery issue because, you know, what happened to the children, sort of, you know, back when the Constitution was written, basically, what happened to the children of slaves born in the United States? You know, were they stateless? What happened there? So there's a history to this, and actually, if the United States wants to, if the president wants to change this, it's a constitutional issue, and it needs to be addressed as such rather than as an immigration issue. And so rather like they don't have the problems of the ECHR, which are particular to sort of us, if you like, you know, we don't have that problem there. So it's a peculiarity of the United States history and constitutional system. I mean, I think there are probably very few Americans that disagree with President Trump, but it's how to unravel the constitutional issue, because if you open the Constitution up for discussion, this part or that part, whatever it may be, then you end up with a whole circus of everybody wanting to change everything.
Of course.
And there's a danger in that.
Be careful what you wish for and stuff.
Right.
Henry, thank you. Always good to have you on. Henry Bolton, International Border Control expert, a crock of stories on that one. 0344 499 1000. Catherine in I don't know why Finn, our producer, put this one through to me. It's very complimentary. Catherine says, Ian, you are a lovely man. Thank you very much. I do hope when your boys are old enough, they'll realise how lucky they have been to have a father like you. It was very nice. All I would say, Catherine, is you wouldn't have said that this morning if you'd have been in the kitchen with my 7-year-old who decided to turn into the Tasmanian devil. You know how kids can just do irrational stuff? So he absolutely lost the plot. You know, they call it a meltdown. Do you know why he lost the plot? New trainers. Oh, my God. New trainers. And here's the thing. So he looked at the trainers and went, what's that? And then he tried them on, like as reluctantly as a kid could put a pair of shoes on. It was art to watch this happen. It was like he was auditioning for something. Like, try and put a pair of shoes on in the manner of a very, very angry man. And he did it. And he got them on. And I'm shouting, saying, what's wrong with them? Stop shouting. What is wrong with them? And he said, I'll look like a right dingus. And I said, where's Google? What's a dingus? Finn, do you know what a dingus is? I'd never heard of a dingus. Apparently, now this is the problem that I discovered. A dingus, you know when you can't think of a name of something, you go a thingy, or a thingamajig. A doohickey is another one. A doohickey. Have you ever heard? I've never heard that before. I discovered this morning. Oh, a doohickey. You can't think of the name of the remote control, or the, you can't think of the name of what that little screw is that they give you with IKEA things. Oh, a thingy. A what's-it. A what's-it. Yeah, is it a what's-it? You know, the what's-it. You know, can you pass us the what's-it? What's the what's-it? The what? Pass us the what? What's the what's-it? The what's-it? The thingy. The thingy. The what's-it. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what it is. So apparently that's what a dingus is. But then I dug a little deeper, and apparently dingus is an informal word for a fool. OK, that works in the context. A thingy or a penis. What? Now, men have all sorts of imaginative names for their little man bits. I've never heard a bloke say, I'm sorry, mate, I can't come out for a beer tonight. Got dingus ache. No one ever said that, did they? I mean, Finn might. I don't. After his weekend, it's entirely possible. Dingaling, yes, a dingaling. Anyway, 7-year-old's feeling like a dingus. So, yeah, I did shout this morning. I did the dad shout thing, which is slightly worse than the mum shout, but not as regular. That's always my defence. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dingus. Let's go to the voice of doom. Day 11, about 45 minutes ago, or thereabouts, we played you the mystery voice. This is how it sounded.
Any of the noble aspirations.
These are some of the guesses. Elon Musk, no. I thought it said Noddy Holder. Eric Holder, no. Stephen Witkoff. Zara Sultana, no. J. Edgar Hoover, Walter Mondale, J.D. Vance, Robert Kennedy, John McCain, no. Alex Salmond, no. Steve Bannon, it is not. Nelson Rockefeller, Mark Carney, Robert F. Kennedy, Neil Armstrong, no. David Trimble, George Bush Sr., Lord Biffin, Mike Pence. No, none of those. We haven't got a right answer, which means it rolls over to tomorrow after England win the World Cup, which will be tonight, well, sort of ish. They'd be down to 16, and then it's just a little matter of Mexico. Great. It could have so gone the other way, couldn't it? Well, no, probably not against Mexico. Slightly on fire, those boys, but tonight should be... when we play Dr. Congo, then it should be we should be in the right ballpark. But let's see. We're doing all right. We're doing all right. Back to the calls. Jill in Cornwall. What have you got, Jill? Afternoon to you.
How are you? All right?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, fire away.
Well, I'm getting more and more angry about the situation with these illegal immigrants. They're not all refugees. They're not all people coming from countries where they're being persecuted, but they're illegal immigrants. And you break the law in this country and become illegal, you get put in front of a judge and in many cases put into prison. These people now have got the ECHR on their side. And what I want someone to tell me is, what about my human rights?
Yeah, fair.
You know, work all year or all my life, save money, help with housing, with other things. My husband's done the same. I've come through cancer treatment and goodness knows what. What about my human rights when it comes to the comparison between the illegal immigrants and the people of this country? The people paying the wages of the politicians and the blinking solicitors and lawyers, that we're basically paying them to slap us in the face.
The trouble with the way the law works, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Jill, is that the minute you claim asylum, you cease to be illegal. So if you just rocked up in a boat and ran across the beach, you'd be stopped and possibly handcuffed and taken away. But if you say, I'm claiming asylum, then at that point, everything changes.
But there has to be something or someone or some department. We've got all these blinking civil servants and Home Office people sat at their desks and goodness knows what. Who is deciding that these people are asylum seekers? They get off these boats. I'm sorry, I look at the pictures and I think, goodness me, they get off the boats, they've got on really expensive trainers, jeans, jackets, you name it. They look as if they've just jumped off of a train. I know that amongst them there will be those that have all the justification necessary.
And listen, I mean, and I say this not to make any particular point. It's not an anti-migrant point, but every time a journalist has got close to interviewing some of these guys, our own Chloe Dobbs that we had in the first hour did something similar for a Channel 4 programme. Most of the guys are saying, yeah, I want to, I'm coming from wherever. It's not a great place. Don't want to be there anymore. I want to get a job. I want to work. They're not rapists or criminals. They just want to change their life like a lot of 18, 20-year-olds would do. You're right. Within the group, there will be some who might have escaped a horrendous regime or a war zone. We all understand that. I get it, but that particular route is favoured by people. Bearing in mind, you've got to cough up, a couple of £1,000 to get on the boat. So, yeah, you're not that destitute if you can put your hands on that sort of money. And I'm not trying to be mischievous by saying that. I genuinely don't think you would be. And
so why have they come through countries where they would have had, France, Germany.
Yeah, because they want to get to the UK. Because the UK, they've got a better chance of everything in the UK. There are countries that oddly pay a little bit more in terms of the weekly allowance. But it's not just about that. I think the English language is a big pull because it's a language that most people have at least some understanding of. And invariably, many of these people will have relatives tucked away in other parts of the country already. It's as simple as that. And yes, I get it. Most aren't criminals or sex offenders. Unfortunately, we're being asked to play Russian roulette because we don't know who might be a bad 'un and who might not be. So that's not a good and a fair game to play on the British people. And it's massively expensive, and it's a con.
But then we hear news items of women being raped, children being abused, people carrying knives. All these things, all these awful things have gone up since we've had to deal with more illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, why are they being allowed to step on the land before they've proved that they are asylum seekers?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Well, I guess you can't, I think the law of the land is in the same way that you don't need a passport. If you're claiming asylum, you're not required to have a passport or any papers at all. You could be anyone of any background. Mysteriously shows up, and I could go to France and say, I'm claiming asylum. It'd take them 2 minutes to realise I was having them on, but you take the point.
Well, France wouldn't accept it, it's like as if we're mugs, to be perfectly honest. They come here because in this country, we don't look after the people that need looking after, that kept this country afloat. We don't look after them. They're struggling for housing, they're struggling for heating, food, you name it, health, whatever.
You only have to ask that. I mean, you're making a completely reasonable point, and it's not one that even should be made, because it's easy to see and easy to acknowledge and understand that very, very simple argument. We're not living in easy times. There's lots of people that have lived here forever that are struggling in so many different respects. They're not just the elderly. I can talk about former military vets who, haven't even got a home, for goodness sake, all of the above. Jill, I have to move just because of time. We are usurped by the clock. Thank you to Jill in Cornwall. We are going to talk football, as we referenced, but pretty important football match taking place tonight with the good doctor. We'll get some details on that in a couple of moments. Just gone 3:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, it is Talk, 25-4. Now, big match this evening. England face DR Congo for a place in the last 16 of the World Cup. Spence set to start right back. Madueke comes in for Saka. Expected team news here. And, of course, lots of other details to come. Let's talk to Charlie Wyatt, chief football correspondent over there at The Sun. Charlie joins us live. It doesn't say where from, but you are live in the United States. Good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. I'm hoping, I don't know if you can quite make out, but I've got the pitch in the background. I'm inside the stadium, I'm in the press box, and it's really noisy. So it's an amazing stadium. It's going to be the semi-final as well. So hopefully, if England win here today, they win in Mexico City and they win in Miami, they could be back here, but there's a long way to go. But it is an incredible stadium, and it was built for football as well, not American football or baseball. So yeah, there's going to be 30,000 or so England fans inside here, I think, and it should be a special atmosphere. And by the way, it's only 25 to 11 in the morning here, so really unusual. We're having a midday kickoff. Obviously, it's going to be 5 o'clock your time.
Yeah, well, frankly, in terms of the clock, they should all be that kickoff because it suits us just fine compared to the match that will follow, which, of course, will be 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's going to be a tough stay up for English fans if they play in Mexico. It's going to be 1 o'clock in the morning. Look, England fans haven't had it too bad. It's been like 9 and 10 o'clock starts. I think some of the other nations have had in Europe 4 or 5 o'clock starts. That's because I think the British TV companies pay quite a lot of money, so they keep on really late.
So what are we thinking? What is this looking like? Is Rice back? We know that James is not going to be not going to be playing. What is the detail and the info and the intel you have at the moment, Charlie?
So it looks as though Marcus Rashford's going to start, and it looks as though, Noni Madueke ahead of Saka, who's not been fit. Declan Rice was always going to come back. It was sensible that he rested. He's got a hamstring problem. He's out since Christmas. But he'll play. England really missed him, I thought. It's going to be a very, very frustrating game against a good team. They've got Premier League defence, but England will probably have about 75% possession. It's what they do with it.
Yeah.
I think it could be quite painful to watch. Like the last two games have been pretty painful as well. So I don't think we're going to have an extravaganza of football, to be honest.
No, but we might have another park the bus moment, of course, and that of course is 100%. Tricky. What one would assume, based on that, Charlie, that Tuchel and his team have been working like absolute madmen to somehow, plan and work out how to circumnavigate and penetrate the bus.
Definitely, and it's the theme of the World Cup. We've seen Spain have a shock draw. We've seen, Germany dumped out. We've seen Holland dumped out now. These teams that in the past may not have been strong, they know you can defend. I mean, in the qualifiers, England only beat Andorra 1-0. Andorra's got a population of 50,000. 50,000 people, and they only lost 1-0 to England. So look, these teams, they're fit, they're defensively savvy. So England need an early goal, but they do have Jude Bellingham, they do have Harry Kane. That should be the difference. That's got to be the difference. And if England don't beat Congo, then I think, they can only have themselves to blame. And Thomas Tuchel, the heat will be on him, but I don't want to be too negative. England have to win this.
Indeed. Well, my son said to me, oh my God, Congo have got Premier League players. I think they've got sort of maybe 5 or 6 available to them, but I said, yeah, but we've got 11. Or sometimes 10, but you take the point. So we've actually we do beat them on that front. But of course, if defence is the only name in town for Congo, then that will be a tricky match. As you rightly say, I can't see this being a sort of 3-2 or a 5-4 or a 5-0 or anything like that. It might not be the best game of football you see, but we do need it to be a win. What's your assessment on that, Charlie?
I think it'll probably be 2-0. I think it'll be a painful watch, as we saw against Panama. I mean, look, Panama didn't have a single Premier League player. They had one player who plays for Norwich.
Yeah.
And, they were really frustrating. Obviously, it will be very, very difficult if we beat Congo, because it'll be Mexico in the Azteca, where it was the hands of God in 1986, and Mexico last night looked unbelievable. So I think people thought England will have an easy way through to the quarterfinals. Well, they won't, because even if they win tonight, it's going to be hell at the Azteca. Tonight, they've got to be patient. Yep. They've got to use all their class in the final third. We need Harry Kane. We need Jude Bellingham. We need Marcus Rashford. People keep saying how good all these players are. I think some of them, not the ones I've mentioned, some of them aren't quite as good as everybody says. But it's up to them to just crank up their levels a couple of notches, and hopefully get England into the last 16 and set up. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the pubs in England with a 1 o'clock start. Do you on a Sunday night, Monday morning? Will they all be open?
No, I mean, we were trying to get to the bottom of that. There's sort of mixed assessments and thoughts on this at the moment, but I mean, something's going. I mean, one of the biggest problems, of course, is if you open a pub at 1 o'clock in the morning. Many pubs are on housing estates, and you can only imagine the neighbours would go absolutely mad, even if it is only once every 4 years. But we'll watch with interest on that. From your point of view, Charlie, but look, when you're a football writer and football is something you've enjoyed and loved since you were a kid, it's already a great job. I know once in a while you probably have to go to Spurs or something awful like that, but you take the point. Covering the World Cup is, I mean, are you working right now or just having a great time?
My mates just think I'm having a great time, and look, of course, it is an absolute privilege. And when I wanted to be a journalist from the age I was 12.
Yeah.
So that's all I ever wanted to do. Look, it is brilliant. I think when you're covering England, it's quite different to when you're covering the other games of the World Cup. The intensity of covering England, and we've been in Cancer, so obviously we're in Atlanta now. It's a 5-hour time difference. We've been faced with England in Cancer, so it's a 6-hour time difference. So, of course, we're working 2 days ahead. We're working for that day. We're working for the newspaper. We're doing live stuff like we're doing now with you. We're doing live stuff for online. So it is actually sort of 2 separate jobs, you know, the live stuff. And you know, already when this game finishes, we will already be getting stuff after this game to not just do stuff for tomorrow's paper, but to do stuff for, what will it be, Friday's newspaper. We're working 2 days ahead. So, you know, it's really enjoyable. It's obviously hard work. Because everything is about it.
You got me in tears here, Charlie, at the thought that you might have to put some copy together, as well as watching the best international football. Listen, enjoy the match. I know you guys, your team out there as well, are just absolutely superb. Best sports coverage you'll find anywhere. Thank you to Charlie Wyatt, chief football correspondent at The Sun, over there at the Atlanta Stadium, ready for that 5 p.m. kickoff. It's DR Congo, England. It's not going to be easy. I know the cliches apply. Nothing is easy at that level, and there's different pressures and all manner of techniques that are employed that perhaps ordinarily wouldn't be in any other conditions. But this is the World Cup. It's the last 32 that England are part of. Can they make it the last 16? Won't be straightforward, we can say that much. 0344 499 1000. Couple of emails and comments from you, I should say messages. This one in from Mark in Somerset. The Human Rights Act is just being abused as basically a loophole in the law. We got to do is change the law and keep the human rights simple, says Mark. Yes, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think anyone with half a brain can look at the current ECHR nonsense going on and say, is that being abused? Well, lawyers would say it's not abuse. If you're testing the law and that is the law and you win the case, that's because the case fell within the remit and the sense of the law. That's the argument. So, yes, and if it turns out there's a disproportionate number of cases that are being waved through, I mean, I mentioned Article 8 of the ECHR, which is the right to a family life. There's all sorts of other elements to it, but that's the broad defence that is used. 77,000 people won their right to remain here on that basis last year. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying, well, hang on, how far did lawyers have to take it? There will be some obvious cases, and we're all kind people, we understand that. But you know there's been abuse. We know this. We report on the abuse. But at the moment, it's fallen with it just within the law. The law needs to change. Clearly, the law needs to change. Dave says, Dave's in Dorset, if I turned up on the Falkland Islands and claimed asylum, I would be on the same plane out of the country. Could you not get onto the Falkland Islands if you're British? I mean, would they not say, yeah, in you come, mate. You're one of us. Would it be that? One here says, Ian, the migrants don't have any justification. Why would you pay 5,000 quid to go on a rubber boat? The only reason is to get here and get stuff for free, work on the black market, pay no tax at all. That's why getting on a ferry is cheaper or even than flying. Yeah, I mean, it is. If you make it through, I mean, some haven't even paid £5 grand, could be 2. And this one from Rob, who says, if the will was there, couldn't the UK take the French to the ICJ, the Independent Court of Justice, or similar? If I were to be the first of many to board a flight to Charles de Gaulle bound for Heathrow without documentation, the security services would take issue, right? Yeah, they would. Did it on a plane, the entire airport would close. It's almost that simple. Keeping with the World Cup theme right here on Talk, we are, of course, celebrating a massive summer of football in absolute style. And here's a question. You might be familiar with the question, but are you going to be the recipient? How do you fancy getting your hands on £26,000 in tax-free cash? £26,000 tax-free. Could be yours. Just imagine that landing straight into your bank account. Ka-ching. Whether you'd clear the bills, book a luxury holiday, or just enjoy a bit of financial breathing room. Totally up to you. It's a life-changing amount of money. So if your bank balance could do with a serious boost this summer, here's everything you need to know.
for your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. To arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Lots to get through in the last 10 minutes, including your calls and comments as well. This one from Brian. Afternoon, Ian. I wonder if this rape gang leader who is being released tomorrow had to go before a parole board, and if he did, why on earth did they think he was safe to go back on the streets? I did read that one out a little earlier. It's still a question that we're all confused about. There has just been a tweet from Andy Burnham, the next Prime Minister, who says, like everyone, I want this vile criminal out of the country. Victims must come first. I will ask the Home and Foreign Secretaries to review all possible options, and they should consider nothing is off the table. That's the bloke who's not actually the Prime Minister. It sounds like he's kind of doing the job of one already. Fair, that's what he says. I want this vile criminal out of the country. Victims must come first. One in from Richard. This is kind of reference where we began in terms of class and whether white working class kids are left behind and the like. Richard says, afternoon, Ian. I live in the north end of North Yorkshire, and I'm sick of this Andy Burnham character already. His accent sounds like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. An actor, who is a proud Yorkshireman, of course, Sean Bean, an actor trying to sound northern, and this male feminism is so unappealing. It's just wet. I would prefer a strong, competent, articulate, pragmatic and intelligent leader. Boxes which are all ticked by Kemi Badenoch. That's the interesting thing, just to go back to the Labour lot saying, you know, we need more diversity in the cabinet. I mean, the Conservatives have their, third or fourth female leader. They've had 2 female prime ministers. They've had a South Asian prime minister. They currently have a black of Nigerian origin leader. And I don't think the Tories need any lessons on, you know, diversity on the front bench, really, do they? Anne's in Sussex. Anne, what have you got for us? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to share this with you, your listeners who may or may not know,
the Hungarian Prime Minister has announced that senior officials, Parliament, will have to take a 40% cut in salary. Senior leaders, which would be our civil service across the country, will be reducing their salary because public life should be about service.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, every Parliament, the parliamentarians get a rise in their salary.
Yeah.
And the whole of the civil service, the top of the health service, wherever you work in public life, they do have very big pensions, especially just before they retire. And I think our junior doctors are going to have good pensions. And I saw firsthand how they can roll them over and get 2 or 3 pensions during one career. And the country cannot afford to go on in this way.
So this is Viktor Orban in Hungary. So he's pulling the civil service apart, is he, in Hungary? I wasn't familiar with that.
Well, yes. The Parliament's agreed. Oh, I wanted people to look it up, but I thought, we should stop hitting the people at the bottom who are, the people who are working and paying the tax and not getting any handout.
Yep.
And the pensioners who paid for the pensions of the people in the past and are still on low pensions, while some people are getting very fat.
Yeah.
But we don't touch them.
It's fascinating that someone like you or me, Anne, and I'm talking about, people who pay our taxes or have contributed over years into the system, should be in this position where I mean, anyone can see the kind of crime scene of an overinflated civil service or bureaucracies that don't need to exist, quangos and God knows what. You've got Andy Burnham planning another layer of bureaucracy by opening another Downing Street in London, in Manchester, which I read earlier I can't remember what the figure was, what it might cost. It was astronomical what it would cost to put that into place. I mean, it's a stupid idea. It's designed to make stupid people feel that the man is onto something.
Well, there's people who go from one big chairmanship or one quango to another. When there's any auditing of what's gone wrong, how much is it costing for the COVID debacle?
Yeah.
Other countries manage to sort things quite quickly. We talk about potholes. Well, our roads, we didn't get the money from Europe for our highways, our roads, the way that the other countries did when they joined. We don't seem to have a top tier in our society that looks after our country.
Yeah.
And I thought the Hungarian Prime Minister was saying what needs to be said. That actually you are privileged to be there and it's about public service.
It's about public service. Cracking point. Anne, thank you very much indeed for that. Have a lovely afternoon and evening. Amanda says, for heaven's sake, when are these useless politicians going to wake up and understand it's merit that counts, not gender or anything else? This was referenced the call from many Labour MPs, mostly female Labour MPs, who are going to... well, they can hardly insist, but they're encouraging Andy Burnham to make sure his cabinet is 50% female, 50% male. Now, this is a really stupid thing to do, because I don't think they would complain. If it turned out that Andy Burnham didn't achieve this and it was 60% female and 40% male, I don't think those same voices would be going, no, Andy, you can't do that, you've got it wrong. It's ridiculous. There's quite a lot of high-profile females currently in the government. In government, in the top tier, there are 4 big jobs: Prime Minister, Chancellor, Foreign Secretary and Home Secretary. They're the big 4. 3 of those 4 are held by females. And then there are other departments also that have education and others, so big portfolios that are held by females. I have no idea what this kind of crazed cohort of dodgepots are thinking when they come up with... Did nobody say to them, you do realise there's quite a lot of females already in the most important jobs in government are female? Do they not realise that when somebody points out the flipping obvious? And also this matter of merit. I mean, surely, if somebody's going to run the... let's say that Andy Burnham has got it perfectly balanced, pretty much, bar one position, the Secretary of State for Agriculture, say, and there's a bloke who's really good because he's a farmer, and there's a woman that has no experience of business or anything at all. Are we really saying he should give it to the woman to completely balance the books? And I would apply that the other way round as well, just so you can balance it up. Yeah, but we've got a farmer here. Oh, yeah, but she's a woman. We need 50-50. No, we want talents. It's likely to pretty much come out around the 50-50 mark anyway. But at the moment, we have a bias against men in the government when it comes to the top jobs, because 3/4 are taken by women. I mean, what argue that which would also be a stupid thing to say. But how far do you want to take stupidity and the daft, platitudinous arguments that seem to stream from all of this? Paul says Burnham is crying like a woman, saying he wants a holiday before he's Prime Minister. Why he can't get his way? When he can't get his way, he'll cry like a baby. When he can't get the backbenchers to support him, he'll spit out his dummy. That may well be true. And this one comes in from Fafa, who says, has Starmer decorated number 10 yet with flags? He must have, surely. Country first, remember? I don't know whether there's a flag going up, which is odd, because, I mean, he, you know, of all the things, I can't really think of many positives in Keir Starmer, or points where I would say, yep, he's true on that, but he is genuinely a football fan. But is there a flag up yet, Kev?
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm dedicating my show to football haters everywhere.
Yes.